Okay, we will call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. The NVUSD Board of Education is holding a regular board meeting tonight, and we invite participation either remotely or in person. Directions on how to participate via Zoom are available at nvusd.org/board. The open session part of the meeting will begin around 7 p.m. Item B, public comment on closed session items. Before going into closed session, the board is available for public comment on closed session agenda items. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on closed session agenda items?
There is no public comment on closed session items.
Right. Seeing that there are none, the board will now adjourn into closed session. See you around 7. All right. Good evening. My name is David T. Gracia, and this is the Napa Valley Unified School District Board of Education. The NVUSD Board of Education is holding a regular board meeting tonight, and we invite participation either remotely or in person. Directions on how to participate via Zoom are available at nvusd.org/board. Interpretation in Spanish is available for tonight's virtual board meeting. Our interpreters are Paul Huertas and Vanessa Cardenas. One of the interpreters will now translate the directions on our English channel so our Spanish-speaking families may hear the instructions.
Buenas noches, esta es una reunión del Distrito Escolar del Valle de Napa. Esta reunión será también transmitida en el idioma español para aquellas personas que desean escucharlo en este idioma. Lo que tienen que hacer en la pantalla de su computadora o en sus celulares, ir a la parte baja y hacerle un clic al símbolo de globo terráqueo. Inmediatamente después de eso, van a escoger el idioma español, Spanish en inglés, y van a disfrutar esta reunión en el idioma español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Can we please start with an attendance roll call from Vera Morales, Executive Assistant?
Yes, Student Board Member Gomez is absent tonight. Trustee Gracia,
Present.
Trustee Water,
Present.
Trustee Reiser,
Present.
Trustee Shu,
Present.
Trustee Jenkowitz,
Present.
Trustee Hart,
Present.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares,
Present.
quorum present. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then we are on to the next item, which is thank you for joining us tonight for our NVUSD board meeting. Item E1. Trustee Reiser, do you have a report on closed session items?
With respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Ed Code 35146 and 48912.20, Government Code Section 49060 and 49078, and the Family Rights and Privacy Act, student matters. We will do the roll call votes. Is that correct?
Yeah. You have to make a motion also.
Okay,
So you're reporting the recommendation.
Oh, I'm writing. Okay, I'm sorry. So as to matter D1A1, the board recommends for the expulsion of student 03092023A.
Move to expel.
I'll second the motion.
All right, first by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Jenkowitz. Ms. Morales, you have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Trustee Gracia,
Aye.
Trustee Water,
Aye.
Trustee Reiser,
Aye.
Trustee Shu,
Aye.
Trustee Jenkowitz,
Aye.
Trustee Hart,
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And for item D1A2, for the expulsion of student 03092023B, the board recommends the expulsion.
I'll move to expel.
I'll second the motion.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Jenkowitz. Ms. Morales, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Gracia,
Aye.
Trustee Water,
Aye.
Trustee Reiser,
Aye.
Trustee Shu,
Aye.
Trustee Jenkowitz,
Aye.
Trustee Hart,
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And for the third case in this section, D1A3, the board recommends the expulsion of student 03092023C.
Move to expel.
All right, a motion by trustee Chu, a second by trustee Jankowicz. Ms. Morales, may we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gracia,
Aye.
trustee Water,
Aye.
trustee Ricer,
Aye.
trustee Shu,
Aye.
trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
trustee Hart,
Aye.
trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And for the matter of D1B, readmitted expulsions, the D1B1, the board recommends for the readmitted expulsion of student 121-22019D.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Jankowicz. Ms. Morales, please give us a roll call vote.
Trustee Gracia,
Aye.
trustee Water,
Aye.
trustee Ricer,
Aye.
trustee Shu,
Aye.
trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
trustee Hart,
Aye.
trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And that's all we have. All right. Now on to E2, flag salute. Trustee Gonzalez Mares, would you lead us in the flag salute? please?
Absolutely. We can all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. E3 announcement. This meeting is live streamed and recorded via Zoom and will be archived on the district's YouTube channel. For detailed review of any meeting agenda item, the archive video can be referenced on the district's webpage at nvusd.org. The process for public comment can also be found on the district's webpage. E4, approval of agenda.
Move to approve. I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Gonzalez Mares. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. E5, approval of minutes. E5A, February 23rd, 2023.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Gonzalez Mares.
We need abstentions here because there were absentees.
Approving of minutes. Okay,
And trustee Hart.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, E6, recognition of visitors and employee organizations. Dr. Massetti, do we have any visitors?
Yes, I'd like to welcome the president of CSCA who's on tonight, Mr. Hector Gallegos. Mr. Gallegos, would you like to address the board this evening?
Yes, good evening, board members, Dr. Massetti. I see Mike and Dana and Rob. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to say, I guess, thank you guys for whoever participated in the bus ride with the students. You know, you guys got to see what, you know, students, the routes that the students take, and you also got to see the classified staff do at work. So I encourage board members to participate in, you know, outings like that. I'm pretty sure you guys have that in your future agendas. But it was fun, I guess, for me, just to see the pictures on social media, and the fact that you guys got to experience, you know, something like that. I'm pretty sure it was interesting, fun, and kind of cool at the same time. So again, you know, hopefully you guys could do something of that sort more often down the road. So thank you guys for doing that. And at the same time, safe travels for some of you guys that are after this meeting have to travel to get home safe. So
Thank you, Hector. Only Mr. Gallegos is here tonight, so thank you so much for being here and representing CSEA.
All right, on to item F, recognition of students of the month. F1, Valley Oak High School. Will Joanne Clark please present the students of the month for Valley Oak?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you, school board and district for making space on your agenda to honor my students tonight. We are from the Valley Oak class at American Canyon High School. So we are a unique class of 25 kids who are together all day in a self-contained classroom. And I have the extreme privilege and honor of introducing you to two of my kids who you need to know their names. These people are amazing, and write their names down because you are going to be hearing from them in the future. So we have Dex Calderon and we have Myra Gonzalez Sierra. So first I'll introduce Dex. Thank you. Okay, this is Dex Calderon, and he is being honored tonight for several aspects, not only a 4.0 GPA, 100% attendance, and being an amazing writer. Dex is being honored for his artistic ability, and he will be a featured artist at ACHS in the office in the next week. So I do invite all the board members to please come to our classroom, come visit us, and just see what we do and what we're about. But Dex has been in my class this year, and he is graduating a pentamester early due to just rapid credit recovery. And I'll let Dex talk about himself, but I couldn't be prouder to know this person. Okay, Dex, you're up. You can do it.
Good evening. I'm Dex, and starting off, I would like to thank my parents, my educators, Ms. Clark and Arleth, along with the school board and the Napa Valley Education Foundation for this opportunity today. I have gone my entire primary education through NVUSD, starting at Napa Junction, American Canyon Middle School, American Canyon High School, Independent Studies, and now at Valley Oak. The way I got into Valley Oak was by not being academically motivated throughout the COVID-19 quarantine period. Because of this, I didn't really have a high school experience. I got to where I am today by refocusing my mindset and having the determination to graduate. After high school, I set my sights on attending either Napa Valley or Solano Community College to pursue my artistic interest or a form of cosmetology. An experience I am proud of is my ability to overcome my mental challenges and be able to attend class every morning to the best of my abilities because of the environment and my motivation to graduate early. And once again, I would like to thank everyone, and I look forward to my future education. That's all I have to say.
You're amazing, Dex. That was awesome. That was awesome. I know that wasn't easy for you. Look at you on Zoom. I'm so proud of you. Okay, good. Next up, we've got Myra Gonzalez Sierra. And oh, look at her little face. So Myra is a junior, and she is the first student in Valley Oak, not only at American Canyon, but at Valley Oak Napa, to achieve 4.0 GPA, 100% attendance, and 0 tardies or behavior infractions for her entire Valley Oak career with me. So it is a huge accomplishment. Myra is also, a junior graduating in April, a whole year and a pentamester early. And Myra is also on our leadership team and is responsible for really helping me do team building and organizing our Food Friday activities, and Myra's in charge of all the fun stuff because there's nothing fun about Miss Clark. Like, I am all about business and work and standards-based learning. And Myra's like, no, we need to have some fun here. So Myra is in charge of that. So I will let Myra just talk about her amazing self. And I'm just so proud of you, sweetheart. So you go ahead. We can't hear you. No. Is the volume on your computer? Oh.
No luck, Miss Clark.
No.
The only solution I can offer you, if there's not a tech solution, is do you have her cell phone number or no?
I do.
Do you want to try calling her and putting her on speaker and we could hear her speak?
Myra, is that okay? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Massetti.
No problem. Anytime I can provide a tech intervention, I'm here for you.
I like it.
I've been trained by the best.
They might give you another responsibility, so don't act too proficient.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys hear her?
We can. Miss Clark, don't mute.
Okay, sorry.
You got it. Yep, you stay on and stay unmuted so we can hear. Okay, go to work, Maida.
Hi, I'm Mary. I want to thank my parents, the school board, and the Napa Valley Education Foundation for having me today. In the beginning of high school, it was rough, and I needed to earn a lot of credits due to missing a lot of work throughout the years. But then I got into Valley Oak American High School to earn back all my credits that I needed, and now I've earned enough credits needed to graduate, and I'll be graduating a year early. Thanks to my wonderful teacher, Miss Clark and Arla, for helping me learn and making me want to go to school every day. After high school, I want to go to Napa Valley College and study culinary pastry. I'm most proud of my experience at Valley Oak and my teachers for helping me along the way and motivating me to be and do the best I can, and overall just the best high school experience.
Good job. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to F2, New Technology High School. Will Principal Dev please present the students of the month for New Tech High?
Good evening, NVUSD Board of Trustees, President Gracia and Dr. Massetti. Congratulations to Ms. Clark and the Student of the Month winners at Valley Oak. My name is Abhinav Dev and I'm the interim principal at New Technology High School. Only a few weeks away from spring break and the New Tech community is busy at work. Our multilingual learners are gearing up for the LPAC test next week, and our staff is getting ready for the Professional Development Day tomorrow at American Canyon High School. This evening, though, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to shine a light on some of our amazing New Tech Penguins. Tonight, I'm happy to introduce you to two young men who embody our core principles of trust, respect, and responsibility. Both these students have shown strong academic results, given back to their community, and have focused on their own personal growth throughout their time at New Tech. Our student of the month for January is Paul Bell. Paul is a junior at New Tech High and has an incredible future in front of him. Paul had a very unique start to high school, as did the rest of the class of 2024. We first met on a Zoom screen. I was his second period teacher in the AM cohort. A year later, we finally had the opportunity to meet in person, and Paul took high school by storm. Paul is the epitome of a genuine friend to all, as he's the first person to say hi to everyone on campus every day. His teacher shared that Paul is a very creative and always follows through with his ideas and projects. One of his strengths is his persistence and his willingness to help. When he sees a problem, Paul is immediately drawn to help. Paul is very active with the Friday Night Live Club and contributes valuable ideas to the prevention efforts. His digital design group was also featured. They had an installment featured in the Lighted Art Festival this past month. Congratulations, Paul. Paul is here tonight and is excited to share a few words.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. I was really surprised to be selected Student of the Month, but here I am. I am very honored and thankful. I would like to thank all my teachers in New Tech for supporting and encouraging me throughout my years in New Tech. Their support made me very happy and reassured. Thank you, Mr. Dev, for welcoming me as your directive studies teacher, because high school did not start as I thought it would be in my first year because COVID, but I was able to grow and adjust to the changes and challenges that high school had to offer. I'm very grateful to be part of New Tech, where I was able to expand my passion for motion design and computer hardware. Like I said, I'm grateful and I'm glad to be here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Paul, and congratulations to you and your family. On to our Student of the Month for February. Congratulations to Senior Penguin, Caleb Kronk. Caleb is a bright, welcoming, respectful, and kind person to everyone on campus. My first year at New Tech High School, the class of 2023 went on a team-building outdoor ed trip to Alliance Redwoods. I was immediately impressed by Caleb's curiosity and all the activities he engaged in with his new peers, as well as the sense of peace and calm he brought to all around him. That's something he continues to today. Caleb's teachers shared that he's empathetic, kind, and always willing to serve the community with grace and accuracy. His flexibility, hard work, and diligence as a part of the yearbook committee is truly appreciated. He speaks thoughtfully and advocates for his peers. Caleb is excited to graduate in just a few months. Congratulations to Caleb. Unfortunately, Caleb was not able to be here this evening as he volunteers in the emergency department at Queen of the Valley Hospital on Thursday evenings and is very committed to his role. He did share a statement that I'm pleased to read now. Thank you very much for this great honor to have been awarded the Student of the Month. I feel so fortunate to have been lucky enough to go to a school like New Tech. My whole experience at New Tech has been uplifting, from the teachers to the community. Thanks to New Tech, I've been able to explore so many opportunities I didn't think were available. Last summer, I was engaged in an internship in the hospitality industry, and now I'm actively volunteering at Queen of the Valley Hospital in the ED. Even with my schedule being more complex now, New Tech has helped me to see what I'm capable of and that I can go even further beyond what I thought I could do. I'd like to give a very big thanks to the New Tech administration. Even though they were in their first years, they've done an amazing job. You can see how much they really care about our school through their interactions with every student and how much of a comforting, safe environment they provide. Congratulations to Caleb and his family. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. All right, on to item G, public comment on non-agenda items. Trustee Riser, did we receive any public comment on non-agenda items via email?
No public comment on non-agenda items were submitted via email before 8 a.m. this morning.
Thank you. Right. On to item H, reports. H1, Board of Education and Student Board Representative. Trustee Gonzalez Mars, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think just a couple of events or meetings that I participated in that my fellow trustees also joined. On Sunday was the CTA Napa and Solano School and College Board Education member brunch. And it was just really great to meet board members from outside of the area. And you say outside, but they're within our area, really. I mean, these are our neighboring counties. So just really a great opportunity to talk to folks about education in general in our schools. And then yesterday just held a really great meeting with in-person meeting with the city of Napa and NVUSD. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Hart?
I have actually been out of commission for the last couple of weeks, so I don't really have anything to report. And that's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you. Trustee Jankowicz?
So yeah. Last week, Dr. Massetti and I attended a California Collaborative in San Jose. The California Collaborative for Educational Excellence was established to provide support to school districts in achieving the goals set forth in their LCAPs. NVUSD was invited to discuss governance. Dr. Massetti and I were asked to address a number of issues. I'll give you a brief sampling of some of the questions. What are your priorities as a district? How do issues of equity connect to these priorities? What are the priorities and norms that guide your work together? How do you respond to the pressures from outside the governance team, inside or outside the district, to consider or address new issues that may not be aligned with your identified priorities? There were more, just giving you a sampling. I had the pleasure of reading to a third grade class and a darling kinder class at Fishy for their Read Across America Day, which coincided with Pajama Day. And I was dressed in my normal clothes, but got asked by two kindergartners that my pajamas were not really in rhythm with theirs. I attended the Northern California Percussion Alliance. The American Canyon Percussion team elevated their performance by precision moves and an intense focus on their percussion sounds. I can envision them performing at pep rallies, school events, or any other opportunity made available to them. They were excellent. It is important to showcase their talent as well as share it. I too attended the CTA board brunch, the coffee with the superintendent at superintendent at Canyon Oaks Elementary. I participated in the NVIS WASC visit. I attended with Director Reddy the Napa FFA advisory meeting, the Finance Advisory Committee meeting, the City of Napa and NVUSD joint meeting. A brief nod to yesterday, it was International Women's Day, a day to celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women from all around the world. And I want to acknowledge all women, but some special recognition to all the strong women in our NVUSD community. Nod to my peers on this board. I listened to the Oakland School Board meeting for a while last evening. Later this evening, we will hear from Assistant Superintendent Manguala. And I need to state that NVUSD has exercised astute financial leadership, made hard decisions, but the right decisions. And it is made ever more apparent by listening to the struggles of districts that were not early and brave. And lastly, I love the pictures in the boardroom. If there was ever a reminder of our responsibility and what inspires us, it is the faces of our NVUSD community.
All right, Trustee Chu.
So I spent a good portion of the last couple of weeks just, I guess, visiting with students and our community, just seeing our why, right? What we do, why we do things on the board. So I went to 2 ACMS drama performances, one on the 24th of February and one on the 25th. These are from 2 different drama classes at the middle school. And they actually performed at the high school, and they learned within one day how to operate the high school theater, which was really, really impressive. They did a wonderful job, and thank you to Miss Grant, who was the drama teacher, for having the students showcase their talents at such a young age. On the 2nd of March, I was participating in the Read Across Americas at Canyon Oaks, and I read to 2 5th grade classes and 2 4th grade classes a book by Kelly Yang, who was one of our Napa County Reads a couple years ago. And her book was a picture book. You wouldn't think that 4th and 5th graders would be interested, but the title was Yes, We Will, Asian Americans Who Shaped This Country. And in the end of the book, there are little excerpts of all the different people that she highlighted in there. And these 4th and 5th graders got really involved in asking questions. And a lot of teachers were asking them, who would you like to meet? And they all knew who, of course, a lot of the people who were in the book were. So I got to read a little bit of excerpt of several of those very famous people to them, and really engaging half hours with each of those classes. On the 2nd of March, I attended the Napa High School performance, Be More Chill, along with the trustees to my right, because we all ended up there. Wonderful performance. The lead was Assistant Superintendent Dana Page's daughter. Wonderful. Really great to see that performance, and the pit. What was it? The student orchestra did all the music for them. Really fantastic and impressive. And then, of course, on the 4th, as Trustee Jankowicz mentioned, I also attended the ACHS Winter Percussions Competition. It was the second competition put on by the Northern California Percussion Alliance, and ACHS placed 2nd in their division out of 12 schools. So congratulations to them. And I also met with a few parents at 2 different meetings, one with the coffee with the superintendent at Canyon Oaks that just happened on Tuesday. So thank you to Principal Stephanie Vasquez and the Canyon Oaks PTO for putting on a really nice event for us to listen to all the parents. And that evening, I actually attended the ACHS ACMS ELAC meeting. And I wanted to thank Cindy Ramirez, who is the president of ELAC, of ACHS and ACMS, but also the DLAC president, for inviting me, because I ran into her on that morning, where the parents, and it was a full house at ACHS library, they received a presentation from Aldea about alcohol and drug prevention for the community. This was a subject that the parents asked for. So I'm really happy that there's a space for that community to ask for presentations that they need. Very, very informative, I think, for the broader community as well. And apparently that night there was a choir concert, which was happening at the same time. So I wasn't able to go, but I did watch some of the videos that some of my constituents sent. And it's amazing when all of the American Canyon schools choir programs all get together at the high school and perform in the gym. It's just fantastic. Really wonderful to see, and looking forward to their future concerts. I also attended the NVIS WASC visit via Zoom, and also the CTA brunch. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Reiser.
Thank you. A lot of overlap here, but I'll start on the 24th. I had a really informative meeting with Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings and Director Reddy. We had a really good conversation about the sort of generally VAPA programming, but specifically the musical theater programming across our comprehensive high schools, and all of the factors and staff capacity and booster funding and other scheduling things that come into play in the decisions about how those programs are run. So I appreciated them taking the time to answer my questions. I also attended the Northern California Percussion Alliance Winter Competition at ACHS at the Wolf Den. I wanted to point out 2 things that my fellow trustees, Jankowicz and Chu, who were with me, didn't cover. One was just to shout out the parent participation that really makes these kinds of outside of the school day programs run. So we have a diehard parent who is an alum parent, Steve Green, and he is still really showing up and advocating and supporting that program and those students, even though his son has graduated and moved on to bigger pastures. And then we also, I don't have their last names, but the two parent participants that really you could tell were making the thing happen, Priscilla and Alexis. It was great to chat with them. And I just want to say that their involvement and dedication, I mean, we were there a long time and they'd been there, they were there hours before we got there and hours after we left helping clean up. So the parent involvement are the things that really keep these special experiences for our students kind of going. And it was so great to see. And the other cool thing was that after the competition, but before they announced the winners of the competition, there was a clinic put on by the head percussionist of the San Francisco Symphony. And so he sort of talked about how he'd gotten his start in drumline in high school in Iowa. And it was just really neat to have him share his experience of how he went from that discipline of, you know, being in the line and learning the choreography and the precision and dedication involved. And that now he's a professional musician who was getting on a plane to Paris on Monday morning to go perform in Europe for 2 weeks. So that was a really cool part of the experience. And I can only imagine how that landed with students who are thinking about their futures and passionate about music. I also had the pleasure of visiting a few elementary schools in the context of Read Across America. I got to read in a first grade classroom in McPherson Elementary School and 4 classrooms at Vichy. And it was always one of my favorite parts of being an elementary school teacher. So it is a real treat to have a little shot of that. And even read stories that I used to read as a teacher. And it was just very fun. I attended the Be More Chill opening night performance. I will echo the amazing review of Assistant Superintendent Page's daughter, Shelby, in the lead role. She killed it. And it's very cool to see the way the kids work together. I love that it's a student pit orchestra. It really is a student-driven performance. And I know from my experience with my kids being in other musicals, just what a memorable and transforming experience it can be to have that opportunity. So if you're listening and you haven't been to the show yet, there are still 4 more performances, I think, this weekend. So don't miss out. I think I'm going to go again and see the other cast because it's 2 casts. I also attended the CTA brunch and agree it was really nice to have a chance to interact with trustees from neighboring counties and districts. Attended the coffee with the superintendent at Canyon Oaks. And I will end on a solemn note, which is just to say that today's the 5th anniversary of the Pathway Home shooting at the Yountville Veterans Home. And I spent some time this afternoon with someone who's become a dear friend who is a survivor of that shooting. And I just want to say that as difficult an anniversary as it is, and I'm going to say the names of the 4 people that we lost, Jennifer Golick, Christine Lober, Jen Gonzalez-Shusharuba, and her unborn daughter, Cece. But I do want to focus on the positive and say in the 5 years since that tragedy, our community, our Napa Valley has made good progress in educating the public about safe firearms storage and the availability of things like a red flag law, that if you are aware that someone is in mental crisis and you know that they have access to a gun, there are things that you can do legally to help them from hurting themselves and others. And that law was on the books at the time of the Pathway Home shooting, and the people did not know about that law. So law is only as good as the number of people who know that it's available to them. So this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Water.
Well, let's see, last Thursday, the 2nd, I attended a Zoom meeting put on by the Jewish Community Research Council, and it was about ethnic studies. It was really fascinating, enlightening. And after that, I spent some time, looking at the state framework and the Anti-Defamation League's resources all online. And then that night, I too went to see Napa High School's production of Be More Chill. Yes, it was amazing and student run, and I was, just very proud of all the students. The next, let's see, on the 3rd, I went to the brunch that the union president invited us to it, and I had a good time talking to a school board member in a county to the south of us that is suffering, the school district is suffering the vicissitudes of too many schools, not enough money. And this person told me that he wished his superintendent had thought it was valuable to make all of the board members do the Masters in Governance course the way we have done. And I told him it was very helpful. And then I too was at the Independent Studies WASC meeting. It was a Zoom meeting. And I went to coffee with the superintendent at Canyon Oaks. It's always a pleasure to go to American Canyon, and the families down there are just so engaged and supportive of the schools. And then on the day after that, yes, I got up at the crack and rode the school bus with the superintendent to Napa Valley Language Academy, Snow, Silverado. I saw all sorts of classified employees out, greeting the students. Also a couple of, I believe I saw, yes, Ms. Christofferson there as well. And I was actually, I guess I wasn't surprised. Let's just say I enjoyed how well behaved all the students were, including the famous demographic of middle schoolers. They were great. They were great. They were terrific. It was fun. And I always say our bus drivers are the best. They're the safest drivers. They stop at all the stop signs. They're very conscious of the precious cargo. So good job, bus drivers. And then that day I went to a finance meeting, and you'll hear about that. And then after that, a meeting with the city of Napa that was really good. And I think that's just about it. I too am looking at the pictures that are decorating this room and thinking, why didn't we do this before? I mean, this is great. And I would like to close. I had a former student get in touch with me. We've remained in contact. She's went to college, got a master's degree, married her Air Force husband. So she's done some traveling. And she was a very good student at Napa High who I would say every sling and arrow that fate could hurl at that kid was thrown at her. She had a hard luck upbringing, just everything you can think of. And you know what? She got into veterinary school, which was her dream. And I am so proud of her. And I need to tell you, it's harder to get into veterinary school than the University of Virginia Law School. So I was so thrilled to hear from her. And I thought, that's it. Yes. And we did it. We made it happen for her, helped her with her school. And she was a good student. She's on her way.
Thank you. So on the 27th, I attended the open house at Napa High School. It was primarily focused on incoming freshmen. They had a good presentation and a lot of tables in the gym. I particularly enjoyed the science table where they exploded a balloon. That was fun. Yeah. On the 2nd, I too attended opening night at Napa High School's Be More Chill production. It was well done. On the 5th, I went to the CTA luncheon. I think in order to be a brunch, you have to actually serve breakfast. So that was not fun. Yeah. And then on the 7th, I attended the NVIS WASC visit. On the 8th, I did the finance committee meeting. And then the 9th, I had a meeting with my CSBA board of directors mentor. So those were the things that I had. Then we are on to H2 board representative reports, H2A Special Education Advisory Committee.
The Special Education Community Advisory Committee has not met.
H2B, City of American Canyon Liaison Representatives.
We have not met.
H2C, City of Napa Liaison Representative.
We met yesterday.
Okay. H2D, Town of Yountville Liaison Representatives.
We have not met.
H3, Superintendent and Executive Staff.
Thank you, President Gracia. So good evening, NVUSD trustees, staff, and community. You will hear some echoing here regarding some of the reporting that I'm going to do this evening. It's phenomenal to have a highly engaged school board that's so present out in the community and able to share many moments in our schools with all of you. So thank you so much for all of your engagement and participation. I want to start off by thanking all of our school site support staff, teachers, and assistant principals and principals for persisting through the necessary modifications in school operations during the ongoing rain. Students are having to spend an increased amount of time indoors as the rain persists. This requires lots of patience and adaptability on behalf of the students and the staff. So thank you as we continue to prioritize student safety during these unusual weather conditions for the month of March. I also would like to remind everyone that approximately 3 years ago, we held a special board meeting to close our schools for what we thought would be a temporary closure in response to COVID-19 right here in this boardroom. We repurposed the March 2020 Spring Professional Learning Day, which is our 2023 day is tomorrow, to provide teachers with the time to draft lessons and assign work that students could use at home. We had no idea that we would be closed for several months and convert our entire system to remote learning and then hybrid learning, ensuring all students had one-to-one technology so that they could use technology in home to engage in school, in addition to serving thousands of curbside meals and embracing many of the functions that have historically been managed by public health. Reflection is important, so I just want to take a moment to pause. We have learned so much since then, and although we continue to navigate the post-pandemic impacts of COVID-19 in a variety of forms, in many ways, we are stronger as a community and organization because we survived such difficult conditions together. So thank you to everyone for their collaboration through that difficult time. So to the present, it's been a very, very busy couple of weeks since the last board meeting. We are gearing up for strategic planning. I'm very, very excited about this work. I've been working closely with our communications director, Julie Bordez, as we prepare to select a partner who will help us with our strategic planning process, which will be launched next year. We're excited about launching a deep engagement process throughout the 23-24 school year in order to create what will be a graduate profile, an employee profile, a system profile, and then a 5-year strategic tactical plan that will provide us the strategic foresight to ensure that we are offering equity and excellence in our school district, loosely calling it right now the path to 2030. So we'll see what emerges as we engage with the community, but we are looking to define our journey between now and the closeout of this decade for our school system. I want to thank Trustee Jankwitz for joining me, as she mentioned, at the convening of the California Collaborative for District Reform, where we did have the opportunity to present to researchers, policymakers, philanthropists, and colleague superintendents from across the state about how a school board can create coherence and alignment in a school district by having robust, effective practices, protocols, and commitments. So thank you for being exemplary. In terms of governance practices, Trustee Jankwitz, you represented the school board so well. Everybody from the collaborative has reached out to me and say they were incredibly impressed in your participation as a panelist and in the several groups where problems of practice around governance were being addressed. So thank you for joining me those 2 days in San Jose. I also want to thank the 6 board members who were able to attend the CTA brunch. Gail, president of MVA, Gail Young, contacted me after the brunch, and she said that she was just so proud to be the leader of the teachers union here in NVUSD and to have such a strong collaborative relationship with the school board. I think many of you observed that many of the union leaders may have been there with 1 or 2 board members. She definitely said that she won the prize for most board members attending, and that she was excited to have the presence of 6 of our 7 trustees there. So thank you again. I know these things take up a lot of your personal time. Thank you for taking the time on a weekend to be present and engage with the California Teachers Association. I know it was really, really important to her. I've also conducted several school visits over the last couple of weeks since our February board meeting. I was at Phillips Elementary, where I had the opportunity to observe Principal Julie Jones lead her staff through an activity called Shout Outs, where the teachers and support staff get together to celebrate their progress on school-wide goals that they have established as an entire school team. So this is including all of the classified support staff, the teachers, and of course the principal. They have established goals for themselves as grounded around attendance efforts, parent engagement efforts, student achievement, behavioral and academic interventions, and teamwork. I want to just congratulate Phillips and Principal Jones for serving as a model where an entire staff is involved in impacting school-wide improvements. I just love to see that intentionality. So it was great to observe. I also enjoyed visits at American Canyon High School, where I presented to upperclassmen alongside City Manager Jason Hawley on the state of the city there in American Canyon. Thank you to ACHS teacher Elizabeth Goff for the invitation to participate. I visited Pueblo Vista, Redwood Middle School, and again, as you heard many times, hosted our first spring coffee with the superintendent at Canyon Oaks, and also got to be at Canyon Oaks twice in a week because I also was able to read in Miss Pruitt's 5th grade class, read a book called A Different Pond, which was about a Vietnamese immigrant family. And it was great because there were several Vietnamese students in her class. So much of the story resonated with them, which was always really, really powerful. Thank you to Principals Roca and Hartnick for their time and attention during the visits at Redwood and Pueblo Vista. They were fantastic visits. And I also want to extend a warm thank you to Principal Vasquez and the Canyon Oaks PTO because they created such a welcoming, inclusive, very cozy environment for the Coffee with the Superintendent. It was one of the most well-attended Coffee with the Superintendent since we started conducting those events. Also, I want to congratulate Napa High and Duncan Cooper and Assistant Superintendent Page. Again, she's like dying of embarrassment, I'm sure. But it was great, you know, as a colleague to experience. I sat with her during the show, and it was just, you know, we worked together closely in a professional manner, of course, but it was just great to be there too as a superintendent, but also personally, just as a fellow mom, watching her beam as she watched her daughter star in the Be More Chill spring musical. I also want to take a moment to congratulate all of our juniors who took the SAT on Wednesday, March 1st. All paid for by the Napa Valley Unified School District. And it was hosted at our high schools, which is always an excellent, the SAT day, I think, is an excellent event because our high schoolers get to take the SAT at a very familiar environment in the natural setting of where they attend school. So that was great. And then, of course, the highlight of the week, it was mentioned by President of CSEA, Hector Gallegos, Trustee Water. The highlight of the week was the bus ride. Also got up at the crack of dawn. Trustee Water and I were at the yard before 7 a.m. and we departed the yard at 7:20. I was so grateful for the staff there pairing us with the driver, Maria Soto, who is absolutely amazing. Talk about calm, confident, and centered. She is all that and then some. She took us on the route that was described by Trustee Water. So we had great opportunity to be with elementary students. We even had a kindergartner who celebrated her 5th birthday. We sang her happy birthday on the bus and she had a happy birthday tiara. So that was really fun. And then had a great experience with the middle schoolers. It was great to see our Harvest transportation hub in action. The kids were there waiting for the several buses that come and do the pickup at the Harvest campus and shoot off to Silverado. I want to give a shout out to Director Marianne Christofferson, who often gets up early to be there and make sure that that is running and operating smoothly. So thank you so much for that effort. Saw her in her former principal mode. She's very comfortable amongst large packs of middle schoolers. So that was great to observe. And then I just want to let you know that Maria drove so well and was so great, has a phenomenal relationship with the kids. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I think it's really, really important when I think about our work around the ecosystem of Cariño. I think Maria was an example of what it means to, on a daily basis, she knew every student's name. She greeted them with a smile. You can tell they have such a strong relationship with her. It kind of gives me goosebumps. It's really, really special. She's also, I want to shout out to her. I can't say enough about her. She has 5 children who are all NVUSD graduates. 4 of the 5 have graduated from a 4-year university, Sac State and UC Davis. So, there you go. Shout out to the Aggies on the board here. And then I want to congratulate Scott Marsden. We need to celebrate him. He's veteran NVUSD teacher, current American Canyon High School economics instructor, who was honored with the 2023 California Council for the Social Studies Economics Educator Award at the annual CCSS conference held this year in Santa Clara. So that is a tremendous honor. So I want to recognize that. And as Trustee Jankwitz said, I also want to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day, which was yesterday. I know there are many women working hard in our district and communities at large to make the world a better place for our children. So thank you so much for your contributions. As the first female superintendent of the Napa Valley Unified School District, I thought it was important to make sure this day of honor and recognition is elevated and mentioned this evening. I look forward to our Spring Professional Learning Day tomorrow that is happening despite the torrential rains. And I just want to thank Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings, all of her instructional team. I know the technology department as well, all of the different departments that have to serve as sort of the backbone of that day. Thank you so much for creating an exceptional day of learning for our NVUSD staff. I know that many, many people will appreciate it by the end of tomorrow. So thank you so much for your hard work. With that, I'm going to introduce each of the assistant superintendents who will report out on the work that's happening in their divisions. And we'll start out with Assistant Superintendent Dana Page, Shelby Page's mother, who oversees the Human Resources Division.
Thank you very much. Good evening, President Gracia, Board of Trustees, Dr. Massetti. First, thank you, trustees, for all your support of our students' activities throughout the district. I know it means a lot to them and the many employees who put a lot of effort into planning them, and your attendance means a lot. And also thank you for your kind words about Miss Shelby Page. This evening, I'd like to celebrate several recent accomplishments under Goal 2.2 of their strategic plan around growing, supporting, and celebrating a talented and diverse workforce. On March 2nd, we held a training for 36 noon duty supervision assistants, and I'd like to thank Sarah Knox, who presented the content, which focused on topics like systematic supervision, social emotional learning best practices, and emergency procedures. Next, I'd like to highlight a collaborative effort with the HR Communications and Transportation Department to create a bus driver recruitment video. Thank you to the stars of the video. They were bus drivers, specifically Ramiro Hernandez, Danielle Hicks, Mike Tyler, Bridget Williams, Sunny Shaw, Gabrielle Soto, Jamie Connors, and Ana Arostegui. They were incredible spokespeople. They talked about the work that they do and why they love it. And you can view the video in English or Spanish on Facebook. And we plan to share this video far and wide to get the word out to potential drivers about this very rewarding career. Earlier this week, we learned that NVUSD was awarded a teacher residency program expansion grant. This will support the program for growing our own teachers for another 5 years. As a reminder, this is a partnership that we have with Sonoma State University, where we host student teachers who are going through their credentialing programs. They stay with us for a year of residency, where they experience the flow of an entire school year alongside a master teacher, and they get to complete their coursework and their student teaching requirements. It's incredible preparation for future teachers to have an entire year in a classroom. They also receive a small living stipend, which helps to make teaching an accessible choice for a lot of people who maybe otherwise would have some financial barriers to doing their student teaching. So we're so happy that with this additional grant, we can continue the program for another 5 years. And I'd like to thank Pat Andre Jennings, who actually started this program 5 years ago, and Gina DeLuca, who's picked up the baton to get the second round of funding approved. And last but not least, our newsletter featured Lourdes Martinez in the staff spotlight. Lourdes has worked for NVUSD for over 20 years. She's currently the head custodian at New Technology High School, where multiple staff members nominated her for the staff spotlight, and they highlighted her incredible work ethic and positive attitude. Her nominator said Lourdes is incredibly helpful to all the staff and students at our school. She greets everyone with a smile every day. Lourdes maintains our campus in spotless condition and makes it a welcoming environment for all. Lourdes brightens our campus in so many ways. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Next, we have Assistant Superintendent Mike Pearson, who oversees operational services.
Good evening, President Gracia, NVUSD Board of Education trustees, Dr. Musetti, Student Board Representative Sam Gomez, who is not here, but members of the NVUSD community who are. I'm honored to be sitting next to Shelby Page's mother, who was a star of Be More Chill. I did have the opportunity to see Shelby in action this past weekend, so I do appreciate that. And I was looking at Shelby. I have not actually met her or talked to her, but I kept thinking, where's Dana? And I could see Dana in her several different times. So it was really an honor to be there. Tonight, my comments are going to focus on strategic plan number 4, tactical, proactive, and efficient asset management. Before I get into that, I do want to recognize that the people at Vichy Elementary School, where I went and participated in Read Across America. So thank you to second grade teacher Jen Bunker and first grade teacher Shari Costanza for allowing me to come in and spend a couple minutes reading a story to each one of your classes. In food service, March is National Nutrition Month. I want to highlight that our food service department posts nutritional standards and allergens for our breakfast and lunch items on the NVUSD website for anyone who is interested in learning more about the nutritional information on any of our menu items. And continuing on this topic, food service is now piloting offering Strauss organic milk for students and staff using our new milk dispensers. We are piloting this at Unidos and Browns Valley Elementary School right now. So really excited to offer this to our students. Additionally, food service continues to meet increased student demand during breakfast and lunch. For the month of January of 2023, food service saw a 49% increase in the number of breakfast items consumed by NVUSD students when we compare that to January of 2022. And for lunch, the increase was 22% when comparing the same month, but different year. Total income for the month of January was a little over $874,000. This is now the 6th consecutive month that food services posted double-digit increase with breakfast and lunch when comparing the 21-22 to the 22-23 school year. So clearly, NVUSD students are choosing to eat our delicious food offerings, and clearly there is a need to feed our students. In custodial, tomorrow, actually, on this right here in this room, we will be participating as part of the professional development. All head custodians will be participating in a leadership training to recalibrate their important role as the chief steward of their campus. We'll be focusing on safe school environment, assigning work, coordinating after school and weekend use, providing and arranging for maintenance, and inspecting custodial work for quality. Director of Operations Gloria Aguirre and I are looking forward to this important work. In transportation, we have highlighted the trustee Water and Dr. Musetti, who participated in the bus ride on Route T4. That was a missing. I'll put that in there with Maria Soto. And this route does transport students to Snow Elementary School, and then it picks up students to take them out to Silverado Middle School. And so on behalf of the transportation department, we thank both of you for participating in that bus ride. And we would like to encourage all other trustees and any other staff here to climb on a bus at some point. And there will be special bonus points offered to anyone who rides the bus serving students in Lake Berryessa. You know, it's not, you don't go backwards. You have to do it now. Okay. And then good try. In facilities, school planning construction staff, along with a select group of elementary principals, has been participating in presentations to select a vendor to provide furniture and furnishings for our TK classrooms next year. And we hope to make a selection in the very near future. And then finally, under high school and middle school athletics, the winter season wrapped up last week with the conclusion of the North Coast section and CIF playoffs. The spring sports season practice began in February, and games and matches and meets, et cetera, will start in earnest very soon, weather permitting. With middle school athletics, students will have a chance to compete in badminton, soccer, track and field, while in high school athletics, we offer several opportunities for students to participate, including softball, baseball, boys golf, boys tennis, badminton, boys and girls lacrosse, swim, dive, track and field, and boys volleyball in American Canyon High School. I'd like to encourage everyone to come out and support our student athletes sometime this spring. And that concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And next we have Assistant Superintendent Pat Andrew Jennings, who oversees the Instructional Services Division.
Good evening, President Gracia, Board Trustees, Dr. Musetti,
Oh, and Student Representative Gomez is not here. And the NVUSD community, the Instructional Support Services Division is geared up and ready for the district-wide Professional Learning Day tomorrow at American Canyon High School. The entire instructional division has been actively engaged in planning and preparing for this day for the last few months. I want to express tremendous gratitude to our admin team, directors, coordinators, academic specialists, and support staff who have worked to create an engaging and well-designed professional learning day focused on an emphasis of creating an ecosystem of Carreño for our attendees. I want to thank the custodial staff at American Canyon High School, especially Kelly Holmes, who helped us unload 5 pallets of materials this afternoon that we needed for tomorrow's professional learning day. We really couldn't execute this day without their assistance and support. Later this evening, we will be providing a report on the development of our ethnic studies course, so I'll keep my staff report brief. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings. And next we have Assistant Superintendent Rob Manguala, who oversees business services.
Thank you very much. I will forego my report tonight. I'll be providing a long presentation on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manguala. President Gracia, that concludes staff reports. We will have the facility, so I'll let you facilitate that.
On to H4, Facilities and Bond Program Update.
Yes, President Gracia, let me introduce our program manager for our Measure H. That would be Kelly Jorgensen, who is the Vice President of Van Pelt Construction Services. Kelly.
All right. Well, actually, I'm here today for A2. It's our first A2 report on activities with the new bond program. So it's pretty exciting. We just wanted to give you a quick update on what we've been up to getting ready for the A2 projects. We're going to touch a little bit on implementation plan development, scheduling the projects for the new bond program, what we'll be up to for summer of 2023, and where we're at with bond oversight committee applications. So first of all, we've been working in school planning and construction on the development of the implementation plan for A2. Some of you may be familiar with the document here. This is still in a draft form, but we're assigning budgets and scopes of work and getting a little bit more detailed on the projects for each of the elements of A2. So this will be coming to board at future meetings for approval. Right now it's in the draft phase. We are also working on scheduling and prioritizing the projects in terms of when they're going to get started and when they're going to be completing. So we'll be updating a document that eventually will get shared with the public that has the names of each projects, when we're going to get started planning and when the estimated construction completion is done, as well as some links to sources, photos, and documentation of the project so that we have a lot of transparency with the community moving forward with the new bond program. Over the summer, we're targeting to do a painting project on the exterior of American Canyon High School. We are looking to do furnishing improvements at the Canyon Oaks Elementary School library. And we also will be doing the pre-construction planning for one of the biggest projects in this new bond program, which will be the Donaldson Way new multi-purpose room and the conversion of the existing multi-purpose room. So we're going to be starting the pre-planning and design work for that. And then we are also getting the word out for applicants for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for Measure A2. So we're looking for engaged community members at American Canyon to join our committee. We've been working closely with the communications team at NVUSD with Julie and Chris to get the word out to the residents of American Canyon that we're looking for applicants. So far, we've gotten one, and we'll keep the board posted as we get more applications and take them for board approval. In the meantime, we'll be starting to develop a meeting schedule and working on bylaws for approval as well. And that concludes your first Measure A2 facilities update.
And just a point of clarification, Van Pelt is our bond program manager for Measure A2. I apologize for saying only Measure H.
Old habits die hard.
It's been H for a while, so we'll let it slip this time. All right, on to Measure I, approval of consent agenda. Background information on these items is provided to the board prior to the meeting. Common motion takes action without discussion on a roll call vote unless discussion of an item is requested by board members.
Second.
First by Trustee Jankowicz, second by Trustee Chu. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item? Mr. Michaels.
Sorry about that. There is no public comment.
Thank you. Ms. Morales, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, trustee Gracia,
Aye.
trustee Water,
Aye.
trustee Ricer,
Aye.
trustee Shu,
Aye.
trustee Jankowicz, trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
trustee Hart,
Aye.
trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to item J, presentation and discussion items. J1, business services. J1A, second interim 22-23 presentation.
I'll repeat that for the record. That's a little better, a little easier on my voice too. So good evening again, and thank you for the opportunity to update the board about our second update to the budget, which is called our second interim. Next slide, please. So this slide is an overview of our gross domestic product. So gross domestic product is equal to the value of all the goods and services in our economy. I've showed this slide at different points in the year. Something important to just see again, huge flip you saw as a result of the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, just the enormous expansion that was just not sustainable. Just going back, for example, to Q4 of 2021, 7%. So pretty much unheard of for our economy. And then a small drop off, but then you see that it's already recovered. And so what this data shows is just the strength in our economy right now, and especially the strength of the consumer. And so what we're starting to hear is just that no matter how much costs go up, people are still spending. So if you use oil for an example, a lot of the oil corporations are actually not lowering rates for gasoline, even though cost for a barrel of oil has gone down. So corporate profits are way up, but people keep spending, so the economy is really strong. Next slide. This slide shows, you can't see the bottom very well. It's a little bit grayed out, but the top is consumer confidence, and the line on the bottom is referred to as headline inflation. And so headline inflation is more volatile. It includes the more volatile goods like food, gasoline. And you can see that inflation's gone up dramatically, over 9%, started to come down, but overall consumer confidence is still exceptionally strong, which is why the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates with their heart set on and causing a recession, essentially. Next slide. So in this slide, you can see the stock market and the impact of increasing interest rates have had. And so this is an important slide to know because you can say the vast majority of the dollars that we receive in education come from high income earners. And they have choices when they decide to generate income. And that main choice is by selling stocks or other assets. And so when the stock market is down, high income earners do not sell those assets. And so you see a lot less revenues going to the state, which impacts us directly in the state budget. Next slide. So this slide again shows Napa being the winner of a prize. And so the winner of that prize is one of the only counties in the state that saw enormous price appreciation. And so when you look at the last year at the median home price in California, it's essentially been flat. If you look at it on average, it's gone down by 0.6%. But in Napa County, it's gone up by 29.4%. And so again, this is median home price. This is not assessed value. So remember, assessed value is just generated when you sell a house. So yes, the home values in Napa Valley have gotten very expensive. This impacts our ability to attract families to come and live in Napa, and then also just for our employees to live. Next slide, please. And so this slide depicts the yield curve. And so what it shows is an inverted yield curve. And so when you look at the slide, you'll see that when you go up on the left, you'll see that it's interest rates going up. And when you go across over, it's over time. And so if we think of a mortgage or any other debt that a consumer would typically have, the longer the term of the debt, the higher the interest rate. That's almost always the rule, except when there's a pending recession. And so what this slide indicates is there is a pending recession that's coming. The reason that you see that is if you look, for example, at the 2-year treasury at 4.41% and the 10-year treasury at 3.88%, something odd is going on. So what you see is that there are higher interest rates for lower terms, 2 years, and less interest rates for longer terms. So essentially what the market is pricing in is that the Federal Reserve has to be close to stopping raising interest rates. And when a recession starts, they'll have to lower interest rates. So interest markets are generally very far looking. Next slide. So in terms of recession, most economists believe that there'll be a mild recession in 23, 24. But again, there's always the unheard of thing like the pandemic that happened 3 years ago, right? So you never know. But again, likely the recession will be mild. But again, even without a recession, state revenues are far short of expectations. So the governor's budget is way too rosy. There definitely will be a reduction in the budget for education. How that lands, we're really not sure. There's lots of questions right now because a couple of things have occurred. One is the state tax line has been extended along with the federal tax deadline. So it'll be very difficult to even predict exactly what revenues will be. I anticipate that when we adopt a budget, it will be just like last year where the state puts forward a placeholder budget, but then continues to make changes over the summer. And then we really won't have a good idea of what's going on until school starts. Next slide, please. So the economy, what's negatively impacting the economy? So there are a number of things, very persistent inflation. We've talked about some of those reasons why inflation is so high. Again, the consumer is still pretty flush in cash from COVID. A lot of that's been spent down, but their spending habits have not changed. So I would imagine there's some borrowing going on. The Federal Reserve is determined to raise interest rates until they see some indications of a slowdown in the economy, i.e. a recession potentially. There's still some supply chain issues. The stock market is still very volatile. We're starting to see some layoffs, meaning that the industries that are highly dependent on cheap money, they are starting to lay people off, which is the technology industry. We haven't seen that a lot in other industries. We're still seeing a lot of employee shortages, especially in the education industry. Next slide, please. So there is a fight coming up. And so the legislative analyst's office is typically a lot more conservative than the governor. But right now, you'd say they're exceptionally more conservative. They made an unheard of statement and basically said that there's an 80% chance that he's wrong. So it's a pretty strong statement to say that, hey, by the way, your revenue projection is there's an 80% chance that it's going to be $5 billion less than you think. So really what it's going to come down to is, again, cuts will need to happen, meaning that revenues right now are not coming in at where they're projected. And so just as a reminder, when we look at our budget, they're looking at revenues going back a year, the current year, and a year forward. Next slide. So I think we've seen this slide before. It's just a reminder about another yay, we won kind of slide. So Napa County it will have the 9th largest enrollment decline in the state. So it's over the next 10 years. So very substantial enrollment decline. I think we've talked, at great length about some of the reasons. And so then high housing costs is a primary driver along with low birth rates. Next slide. So there are challenges ahead. Next slide. And again, so enrollment decline continues to be one of our greatest challenges. So enrollment is anticipated to decline by 904 students over the 3-year budget cycle. So it's a pretty significant number. There's also some impacts on the charter. So we know that the charter was approved by the state. Their enrollment is projected to be 180 students, which will directly impact us and eventually get to 360 students. So that will definitely have a very negative impact on our budget. The district will need to reduce staff in response, but we'll likely need to have to overstaff for the immediate term because we're having a very hard time attracting teachers right now, especially. And so we can't be in a position where come the fall that we don't have enough teachers if they don't have 180 students. So we're going to have to, take the hit in our budget potentially, keep those teachers, and then just adjust the following year. Another big challenge that we have that we are seeing statewide is that attendance rates have dropped to 90% and they have not recovered. So this is something that we saw during the pandemic, that the attendance rates were much lower. As a reminder, our funding, while enrollment is a factor, we're only funded when students go to school. So when attendance rates are low, we get less of that. So again, it's a pretty significant amount to go from 95 to 90. That is an assumption that I ended up using for all 3 years going forward. Hopefully we'll see an increase, but we have not seen any increase at all this year. Next slide. So then again, this is just a graphical representation of what the enrollment decrease looks like. And so again, we'll need to really focus on reducing costs to offer the best programs and continue to attract and retain employees. So the biggest challenge when you have a challenge with your budget, especially when you have a high housing costs, is we need to attract and retain all of our employees, which means we really need to focus on compensation. Next slide. In terms of our LCFF revenues, you really see the impact of increased COLAs and fixed ADA. And so when you look between 21-22 and 22-23, the district and all the districts in the state were essentially overfunded. They received fixed ADA based on prior to the pandemic. It did not decrease, or it does not reflect declining enrollment. And then also what you see is you see a 3-year average baked in, but as you go through time, you can see the impact of the 3 years falling off. And you can see when you look at 23-24 to 24-25, it's less than $1 million increase. So even though there's cost of living adjustments in the background, we're getting something less than 1%, which you'll see in the next slide. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the proposed cost of living adjustment, and then it shows what we would actually see due to declining enrollment. So you can see in 23-24, it's proposed to be 8%. But if things in the projections hold true based on declining enrollment, we'd receive approximately half at 4.54%. When you go to 24-25, you see the much larger impact where the 3-year average falls off and all the increased ADA due to COVID falls off. We have a 3.54% proposed cost of living adjustment. And then we're only actually going to see a net increase of 0.39. And so that's where we really start to see the impact of declining enrollment. Next slide. So what are our greatest challenge? Again, the greatest challenge is attracting and retaining employees. It's very, very important. We know the number one thing for a successful student is a successful teacher, high quality support staff. There are a number of vacancies for certain positions. We have over a 50% vacancy rate for some of our classified positions in special education. So we might need to look at not only just compensation as a whole across the district being important, but then also adjusting salaries for particular positions that are very hard to fill. Next slide. So this is a summary of our budget. You can see that this is our anticipated reserve. Just to kind of point out, this is not what it is today. This is what it's projected to be at the end of the year. So there's always going to be changes. In terms of our reserves, we're sitting on a reserve of about 24%, and you can see it flattening off. So yes, we do meet our reserve requirement and our board requirement. And so again, we'll have to watch this very closely. We do have deficit spending next year. We have some work to do. One of the commitments that the district has had is to adopt a budget that does not have deficit spending when it comes around to budget adoption. So we're doing everything we can. We're tightening up our models. We anticipate that by the time we get to budget adoption, that we will not have deficit spending. Next slide. So what are the assumptions that are kind of built in the background? So again, COVID ADA based on a 3-year average, which is inflated for all districts, including our district. A very positive impact, but it's starting to kind of fall off at 1/3 every year. Additional funding for TK will be funded at the 24 students per classroom with two adults. And so I know when we spoke about the budget at first interim, we were concerned that they were going to bring it down to 20 and we wouldn't be able to attract the teachers because we're having a hard time finding TK teachers. And so as of right now, the governor has made a statement and said that we will not go down to 20-1, just given how hard it is to find teachers, but things could still change. The budget assumptions assume a funded COLA of 6.56, 5.38, and 4.02, along with funding for NVUSD's compensation formula. So we do put aside funding every year. Again, we're not really sure if it's going to come in at 8%. We'll have to watch the LCFF calculator, which is the tool that we use produced by FICMAT, has these numbers baked into that. So they have not put in the 8% yet. So it's one of those things we'll just have to watch as we get closer to budget adoption when they produce their final LCFF calculator for budget adoption. Next slide, please. And then what are our recommendations and next steps? So approve the budget with positive certification. Both certificate and classified cuts will need to occur, but again, most likely it'll continue to be based on our natural attrition. We'll need to continue to ensure that the number of our facilities matches the number of our students. Again, we will, as we start to decline, have some smaller elementary schools. TK enrollment is increasing, but kinder enrollment is actually starting to decrease. So we actually hit the peak of TK if you combine TK and K in the next couple of years. So we will see in 3 years that group together is actually starting to fall again. We need to continue to be fiscally conservative. A positive note here is that we will not need to borrow money to meet our payroll. So this is the first time in our recent history that we didn't need to borrow money. Last year, we needed to borrow, I think, $35 million to make payroll. So it's a big deal to not have to borrow that money. It actually saves us money. That money the interest that we pay comes out of our general fund. So it does save us money. It's a combination of reasons. It's our reserve. And then also we have some one-time money. So we'll just have to watch our cash flow closely. Next slide, please. And with that, I leave it to questions.
Before we take questions from the board, Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not have public comment on this item.
Trustee Chu.
So we're always cognizant of the decline in enrollment in our LCFF funding. At what point does the school district get to a point where we become basic aid? Because although we think of basic aid as what we would see at Valley, it really doesn't mean the same sort of benefits when it comes to a district of our size, right? Where if we are just like $1 over, we don't get the benefits of being LCFF. We no longer qualify for certain supplements or whatever other grants that is possible. So at what, do we have an idea of what population that might be for us?
Sure, absolutely. So there are a couple of things that if I could just address some of the questions out of order. So like being basic aid, all that means is that you receive more money in property taxes than you would receive from the state. And so we receive our funding for schools through a combination of factors. So if you look at our unrestricted funding, it's a combination of property taxes and then along with money from the state. When you use the LCFF calculator, it gives you a total that you're guaranteed. So in our case, let's just call it a number, 160 million. Of that 160 million, maybe 130 of it comes from property taxes, and then other 30 million is made up by the state. We have a large proportion that comes from property taxes, but you know there would have to be a number of series of events to make that actually occur. All that would mean is, again, you receive $1 more than you would get from the calculator. So, or just the combination of the two. So if you use $10,000 as a common reference, it's probably closer to 11,000 now. So I'll use $11,000 per student. Maybe it's 11,005 students. Oh, your basic aid, that hasn't solved your problem. You're just getting $5 more per student. If you look at the Up Valley districts, which I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Massetti, because you actually get this more correct than I do. I think it's St. Helena that gets about $30,000 per student. So they're basic aid, but they're deep into basic aid. They're so basic aid that it's actually triple what everyone else gets. So for us, we will, I'll just say it, I'll take a risk here, a big risk. We'll never get $30,000 per student from our property taxes ever. That day will never happen here because their enrollment is so much smaller and they have a lot of value in their property there. Now, what could happen here to make it basic aid if suddenly a bunch of wineries suddenly sold and they're all reappraised? That could certainly help us, but it would have to be that with a combination of a decrease from the state. So if you recall and you go back, I want to say 3 years ago, like right prior to the pandemic, when the governor said, we're going to have to make an 8% cut, we were like right on the cusp. So if we have a cut to the budget, an enormous cut to the budget, and property taxes go up, we could become basic aid, but that doesn't mean that we're getting more money. Does that answer the question?
Actually, would we lose the benefit of being an LCFF? I mean, there are certain benefits, right?
Absolutely. There actually are benefits, like, for example, the TK funding. There are other benefits too. So again, I do not anticipate that. I've modeled this with the county CBO because the question has come up enough, and we built a tool to look at it. I mean, there's different scenarios, but you basically have two factors that are going up at a similar rate. So you have the increase in money that you're getting from the state, and then you also have the increase in property taxes, right? Or I should say assessed value. So assessed value, like a number we commonly use when we looked at our assessed value for a bond, it's probably about 4 to 5%. But then again, the state revenues are going up at about the same time. If you look at the last couple years, it's been much higher than that. So the gap is going up more on the total number than it is on the lower number.
Great, thank you.
Trustee Jankowicz.
What would a budget presentation be without my 2-minute monologue that barely changes? As you stated in your presentation, our financial stewardship remains a priority in order to prioritize programs and services. But we cannot deny that slide 17, number 17, aptly shows us in an operating deficit next year and year 3. We need to reiterate that while we have a healthier cash reserves than we did 6 years ago, as we continue to repeat, one-time monies have specificity, they are allocated to student need and do not and will not fix long-term issues such as declining enrollment, facilities decline, lower birth rates, and a lack of access to affordable housing in Napa that impacts future ADA. Funding for education is still volatile, and economic indicators and realities impact district budgets. The goal is financially resilient state funding. That is not our reality. So we have to continue to make decisions, as you stated, being mindful of inflation, potential recession, continued national, state, and local declining enrollment, all to ensure that we remain financially stable. We need to understand that even with cash reserves at current levels, they are not high enough to hedge against any large revenue swing. Fiscal impact from the previous 3 years impacted districts differently based on their policy choices, and we have been very purposeful. But there is no guarantee that the May revise will not have any educational cuts. An introduction of a charter school will have real revenue impact. Our local control funding formula, monies used for core educational purposes, unrestricted funds, will not be able to increase, as you stated, the same rate as the COLA because of this issue, this ever pervasive issue of declining enrollment and the decline in our attendance rate, even at the current percentages. My takeaway is always the same. And while we are in the top 10 declining enrollments in the state, budgets really are our priority statement. We prioritize our students. We will continue to assess and make the right decisions so there is financial equilibrium. We cannot operate with deficit spending. We cannot ignore the local impact of declining enrollment. We cannot depend on the state to deliver on our financial needs. And we must continue to sound like a broken record on maintaining our financial solvency as our most important consideration, because it is all interrelated, and without money, cannot educate kids.
Thank you. So I had a question and then some comments. My first question was about some of the budget assumptions deep in the report on page, I think it was 96. You indicated that between first and second interim, our ADA increased by a whopping 4.3%, despite the fact that on subsequent pages, enrollment is projected to further significantly decline, and the size of the decline has increased by 0.5% in each of the 2 out years between first and second interim. These two things don't seem to fit together logically. What is the basis for the projected increase between first and second interim in ADA?
Well, that's a very good question, and I commend you for spending a Sunday looking at that all the way through there. I don't know how much time it took for you to find that, but it's a really good question. So it's actually, it's very connected to what we do in the business office. And so what it is when you adopt a budget, you don't really know what your enrollment's going to be. You have a projection, right? And you also have a projection on what you think in terms of the percentage of students that actually come to school are going to be. So when you adopt it, you say, this is what I think the ADA will be. Just an example would be, the enrollment's 10,000, your 88% is 90%. That means you're going to use an ADA of 9,000. And so that's true when you adopt the budget. It's also true at first interim, right? So when I provide you with the update on first interim, we don't actually know the data yet. When we get to second interim, we have what's called P1, where we certify our ADA and we submit it to CDE. And so it gives us it's the first actual look. So if you think about it, here we are in March, it's our first actual look where we have certified ADA numbers, which is based on enrollment. And so what we do is at the second interim is we make a correction to our projection. And so what that shows is that we were conservative. We're off by 4.8%, basically. So on the conservative side.
Got it. Thank you. So I wanted to highlight the little piece of good news that we had, which was that we don't need to use a TRAN this year in order to cover payroll. And that is good news. It saves the district money and indicates that we're in pretty good financial shape, at least as far as that piece goes. Everything, however, is not rosy. The Legislative Analyst's Office certainly has cast a lot of doubt on the validity of the governor's budget. And it looks like as a result of their analysis that the COLAs that were projected by the governor are unlikely to be achieved either in the current years or in future years. In fact, there's likely to be clawbacks even of monies that were projected in previous budget years to be distributed. So I do also share Trustee Jankowicz's concern of the deficit spending in years 2 and 3. I hope that we keep our eye on that and see if we can't reduce our deficit spending in those out years as we near budget adoption.
We'll do our best. Thank you.
Just say one thing, President Gracia. So I just want to take a moment to express gratitude on 2 fronts. First, I just want to thank the school board for all of the challenging decisions that they've had to make over the course of the last few years. I know I can express this on behalf of, me as superintendent, but our entire district leadership team, also, in collaboration with our labor partners. It is very different to lead and implement this work in conditions where we are feeling financially stable and knowing that we have systems in place to navigate the financial volatility that's been illuminated by Assistant Superintendent Mangwala and reiterated by Trustee Jankowicz and President Gracia. So thank you for all those difficult decisions. We know many colleagues, school districts across the state are just confronting the declining enrollment dilemma and conundrum. We've been at it for a few years, and it feels good to be in a stable spot right now as we prepare for what can be the next sort of financial tidal wave with the recession potentially right around the corner. So thank you for that. And secondly, I just want to, always say, I know the budget cycle, there's all these milestones in the budget cycle. There's a lot of work around first interim, second interim, budget adoption, unaudited actuals. So I want to thank the business services team, Assistant Superintendent Mangwala for leading that work, presenting the data so clearly. And I also want to recognize Executive Director Jenna Burrows, who I see is online this evening, and recognize her. She's a critical piece to executing on the budget milestones. And so thank you, Ms. Burrows, for your work as well.
Well, you took over my closing speech, so I'm going to say the same thing. I was just going to say, it's all right. No, I also wanted to thank Jenna Burrows for all of her work on this. We couldn't do without her, and in the entire business office team. So just the timeline, I mean, I'm sure everyone's busy, but just the timeline to get second interim is always a crunch. And so they've worked really hard to get that done.
The board would like to express their gratitude to Jenna as well. We recognize her input during the finance meetings, and thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to J2, instructional services, J2A, ethnic studies update. It's been brought to my attention actually that it's time for our break. So we will take a quick break and then go on to the J2A. Instructional Services, J2A, Ethnic Studies update.
Good evening again, President Gracia, Board Trustees, Dr. Massetti, and the NVUSD community. I'm excited to share information on NVUSD's approach to creating an ethnic studies curriculum. Tonight, along with Director Monica Reddy, Director of Curriculum Instruction and English Learner Services, and Kelly Miller, our secondary academic specialist, we will share an update on our progress with implementing ethnic studies in NVUSD. It's still on. It's not user error. Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. Over the course of the presentation, we will review the background and context of the Ethnic Studies graduation requirement, provide a review of the California Ethnic Studies model curriculum, and share where we are in the process of developing and adopting an Ethnic Studies course. We will end with our next steps and opportunities for questions. Next slide, please. The beginning of our presentation will provide context and background to ensure an understanding of Assembly Bill 101 and the California Department of Education's development of the Ethnic Studies model curriculum. Thank you. On October 8 of 2021, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 101, an education bill that requires every student at a public high school in the state to take an ethnic studies course. The bill included a one-semester ethnic studies course as part of the requirements to earn a high school diploma in California, starting with the high school students graduating in 2030. The intention of the course is to broaden educational opportunities and teach students about the diversity of communities throughout the state of California. Additionally, the NVUSD board passed Board Policy 6146.1 in February of 2023, requiring students in the graduating class of 2028 to meet that requirement. Our strategic plan, adopted in December of 2018, highlighted the importance of providing responsive, relevant, and engaging learning experiences to our students, as identified in strategic plan goal number 1. The development of an ethnic studies course serves as a critical component to meeting that goal by providing our students with opportunities to explore their diverse perspectives and lived experiences within the context of a class during the school day. Goal number 5 of our strategic plan expressed our value of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The development and adoption of an ethnic studies course exemplifies our commitment to this value while providing students with an inclusive learning environment. Lastly, in June of 2021, the school board approved our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. That plan was developed in partnership with the organization Promise 54, along with our district's DEI committee. The student practices domain of our DEI plan identifies specifically the needs for us to examine and broaden the curriculum to include ethnic studies courses and units that reflect the diversity of the community we serve. The DEI plan also includes the expectation that we would develop guidelines and clarity around the process for staff innovation and engagement with DEI content and efforts. And lastly, the plan identified the need for equitable and inclusive classrooms and schools for our students. I will now pass the presentation to Director Reddy, who will provide an in-depth review of the California Ethnic Studies model curriculum.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings, and good evening, Board President Gracia, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Massetti. The NVUSD course is grounded in the model curriculum from the state of California for ethnic studies. And this allows us to create strong roots so that our local course can grow from that. Given that, I'd like to provide a brief overview of that model curriculum to ground us before we look at our local coursework. So you'll see here that the model curriculum really starts with a strong research base in ethnic studies, and it moves towards
providing for us state guidance and then district guidance. And for districts that choose, I'd just like to remind us from previous presentations that we had 4 options for a particular course. And the option that we chose was creating a local course. So that local guidance is relevant to our course design and development. So it provides guidance when districts do choose that option. And we'll go over that this evening. Next slide, please. So the model curriculum provides a rationale and purpose to start off with regard to ethnic studies that's rooted in research, and we'll go over some of that research tonight. One aspect that stands out in light of our local and state and national challenges historically and more currently that we've faced is that ethnic studies is rooted in bringing students in our community together. This part of the model curriculum really highlights that, so I'll take a moment to read that. Ethnic studies helps bring students and communities together. This does not mean glossing over differences, avoiding difficult issues, or resorting to cliches about how we're all basically alike. It should do so by simultaneously doing 3 things: addressing racialized experiences and ethnic differences as real and unique, building greater understanding and communication across ethnic differences, and revealing underlying commonalities that combined by bringing individuals and groups together. Ethnic studies is designed to benefit all students. So this is not for some, but for all, and our graduation requirement shows that. A key part of our district mission is transforming the lives of all students, and I think the rationale and the model curriculum really aligns with that well. Next slide, please. The model curriculum also calls for us to ground ourselves in the history of ethnic studies. We know that there were philosophers and researchers that came before the Third World Liberation, but they've called out our attention to include the Third World Liberation as a key part of our design. So the Third World Liberation launched very locally. So United Student Strikes in 1968 and 1969 out of San Francisco State College, now San Francisco State University, and later UC Berkeley. I think it's important to note that the 3 demands that students had then were shared by Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings when it comes to our goals and priorities as a district, and are still needs that are real and relevant to our students today. So equal access to public education, increase in faculty of color, and a new curriculum that embraces a history of all people, including ethnic minorities. I'm hopeful that what was once relevant in 1969 is still very relevant today, and we can address that through this course, as well as address our board priorities and our strategic plans. Next slide, please. So what is ethnic studies exactly? There's a core section that defines and has the core tenets of ethnic studies in the model curriculum. From that, staff have developed a short definition. Part of ethnic studies that's really important, like any course, is making sure that you have the language and the tools. And so from developing their understanding of ethnic studies, they have taken that and defined it. And this is a course description that will be put forward. Ethnic studies is an interdisciplinary study of communities of color, emphasizing their social and cultural histories and contemporary experiences. Students analyze systems of power and participation in civic engagement to address issues of race, privilege, and power. Histories of ethnic communities and their movements for change historically are often underrepresented in school textbooks. Exploring these histories will provide students with a powerful way to understand race, ethnicity, nationality, and culture, and how these concepts shape the history of the United States and continue to inform contemporary policy. So they've woven the history, social science framework and the ethnic studies model curriculum and wrote that as a teacher team. Next slide, please. There are many benefits to the inclusion of ethnic studies. These are outlined in the model curriculum. Christine Sleater and Miguel Zavala, but mainly Christine Sleater, are 2 of the top research in this field. Her early work was supported by the National Education Association, and some of the benefits that she has shown through her research, some of which are very local in San Francisco Unified School District, are that students develop a strong sense of identity, agency, and academic motivation. Putting this course in 9th grade as a transition, as I look at our junior data right now, seems incredibly important to our students. It reduces stereotype threats, increases youth civic engagement and community responsiveness, and you'll see that in our Unit 4 as we look at solidarity. And it increased attendance, standardized test scores, GPA, graduation rates, and college enrollment rates. As we have board meetings and conversations and instruction that focus on chronic absenteeism and our test scores, I can't help but think how important this course will be for us. Next slide, please. Principles of an ethnic studies. There are core principles of an ethnic studies that are really grounding our work. Those 4 foundational disciplines are listed above, really focusing on for our African American, Chicana, Latina, Native American, and Asian American and Pacific Islander studies. Within that, providing the histories, culture, struggles, and contributions that are had to American society of those historically marginalized peoples. Also knowing that because it is a local course, that we have the flexibility to deepen and augment that for our local context. Next slide, please. As we move down to state guidance, there are 8 outcomes that they look for within that. When reviewing our local framework developed thus far, you'll notice we call attention to many of these outcomes, which our district academic specialist, Kelly Miller, will call attention to later. But those are the pursuit of justice and equity, working towards greater inclusion or inclusivity, self-understanding and better understanding of others. You'll see a rise in unit number 1 as we focus on identity. Recognizing intersectionality, the combination of race and gender within those identities, also is a foundational part of what will be in unit 1 to really provide students a lens in which they can understand who they are and who others are. Promoting self-empowerment for civic engagement, you'll see a rise in unit 4 as we look at solidarity, what it means now that I have this information, what am I going to go do with that within my school, within my community? And developing the interpersonal communication. In order to engage in these kind of dialogue or engage in this kind of coursework, they have to have the interpersonal communication, and we have to support them with that. Next slide, please. As we move down to the guidance for districts, the committee and instructional team are tending to these core recommendations. So policy and definitions, as you saw in our course description, also within our units, tending to core academic vocabulary so that students have the language to engage. Strategic planning and funding, ensuring that as we decline in enrollment and as we add this course, that we have the funding necessary and we have the sustainability to really support not only the curriculum, but also the professional learning and students engaging in this work. Curriculum and instruction, making sure that we're strategic about the design and implementation of our curriculum and instruction, which you'll see throughout the course of meetings as we finalize that and bring it forward as a recommendation. And then our focus on the pilot next year will allow us to do program monitoring. Looking at data, as you saw in the decision, has been an integral part of this. And we'll continue to look at data and receive feedback that will drive revisions that we have over the course of this design. Next slide, please. Because we are developing a local course, the local guidance is incredibly important. So we've assembled an interdisciplinary team, as you'll see in a few minutes, and provided them the professional learning through strong partnership. Engaged and ensured administrative supports. Our principals and assistant principals have been an integral part of this, as well as the support of our district office staff. Engaging students in community in the curriculum development process. So early on in the steering committee process, we brought in students, parents, and our local community, and we'll continue to do so, as you'll hear later on from Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings. And then use a State Board of Education framework, as you're hearing tonight. Next slide, please. So with that, we'll dive into where we're at with our current development of our local course, and we'll first start with the research and the data. Next slide. So our current progress, we're in 22-23, so we're developing the course. We are still in that process, and so this is an update on how that's going, as well as a professional learning. Next slide, please. Our committee is composed of middle and high school English language arts and social studies teachers, as well as high school administration, district academic specialist Kelly Miller, and myself. Within that, having middle school teachers involved in this process is really to support that transition from 8th to 9th grade. We've spent time in mathematics talking about that articulation, so it's even more important as we look at some of the social emotional aspects of this work and some of the alignment from the history and also the literacy components as we transition 8th to 9th graders. Next slide, please. And with that, I will turn it over to District Academic Specialist Kelly Miller, who's been an integral part of supporting our staff with this process.
Thank you, Monica. So the journey so far has been really enlightening. I've been on it since the beginning. It's been a delight. And we started last year with community panels, listening to students, listening to community members, doing our research, finding out what is part of the model curriculum, what does the state recommend. This year, we have been engaged in professional learning. We had teachers here before the school year started so that we could have solid time together to build a strong foundation. As the year has continued, we have been researching, learning, and starting to build a course that can be piloted next year. Next slide. The professional learning, as I said, has been a joy. It continues to be great. We have a strong partnership with Dr. Dale Allender. He's an expert in the field. He brings lots of experience. He also has written about ethnic studies. He works with students, he works with adults. I cannot speak highly enough of his partnership. We also have really taken it upon ourselves to build on the foundation of school sites. It's ethnic studies in title might be new for a course, but valuing the cultures and the ethnicities of our students is not new. We have pockets of excellence all over the district. And so as we're building our course, we're looking at what are schools already doing? What kind of culture do they already have? What kind of understanding can we build upon? It's been really great to have collaboration between schools. I don't know if you can tell from the picture, but what we really enjoy is that often, literally, teachers are looking across the room to someone who teaches their same grade or their same content area at another school across the district, and they always walk away going, that was so great to collaborate with somebody else in our district who does the same thing I do at another site. And that's been with us from the beginning. We also have middle schools and high schools with us, as Dr. Reddy mentioned, and that has been important because at times high school teachers go, can ninth graders do this? And we have eighth grade teachers in the room to say, yeah, they're ready. I'm working with the ones who are coming to you next year. And that's been really important for us. We've also been building an awareness of our own positionality. That might sound like a big word. Let me explain. We come into the world with our own backgrounds, our own biases, our own families, and unpacking some of that is important, not only as we learn to teach this to students, but as we learn to grow ourselves. So in that, we are practitioners and we are learners when we are teachers. This has also been really full of reflection and feedback. It's a very thoughtful process that we're undergoing. Next slide. We have been doing a lot of reading this year. What you see in the photo here are some of the books that we have been using to educate ourselves about ethnic studies. We are not only looking at things that are big picture, looking at the state, looking at the world, but we are also looking at a local context, as you'll see on our next slide. There we go. It has been really wonderful to look at the big picture of ethnic studies. What is the history behind it and what do we need to know, as well as who are we in Napa Valley? What does American Canyon look like? What histories and what stories do we need to tell based on the people who live here now and the people who came before us? So as a result, our community partnerships have been really informative. The community panel we brought in last year of, who did we have? We had parents. We had people who grew up in Napa Valley. We had people who had come here and were raising their families in Napa Valley, and hearing about their different experiences was so formative. As a result, anytime we can find local history that especially tells the stories that we may not catch in a typical history course, we're quick to gather those in so we can include them in our ethnic studies course. Next slide. So what are we going to teach? Right now, we have a semester-long course that we're developing with 4 units. The first one is a very simple question. Who am I? It's a unit about identity and all the different layers that that might involve. Our second unit will be thematic around land. The driving questions will be, where am I? Where do I come from? What is the history of this place where we live now? Unit 3 will look at systems. So we're kind of going from small and inner and going outward. How am I a product of where I come from systematically? And our final unit will end in solidarity. The driving question is, what role do you and I play in the transformation of ourselves, our community, and our larger society? Overall, as Director Reddy mentioned, that is the time where we want to make sure students understand you can do something with this information. And how is it going to shape you moving forward? Next slide. If we want to get to the very nitty-gritty teacher details, we're making lesson plans and units of study. This is what they look like. Every unit will have a title so that it's very easy for families, teachers, students to know, okay, what am I learning about? What's it called? Time frame. The standards that we're using to develop these units are rooted in history and social science, language arts, and also social justice standards. We're using all of those together. We're not making this up on our own. We want to make sure that this is truly rigorous and it's aligned to what professionals and experts have developed. We'll have driving questions. The tools that we'll use in every single unit will involve a core text. So when you think core text, think like the primary book or the primary resource that people will be looking at. We will also use supplementals. And the reason we're using supplementals is because of that local history and local context. Sometimes there's thinner pieces of work or more contemporary things that we need to be reading, that's where the supplementals come in. We will also be utilizing our community resources. And every unit will have some kind of a final demonstration of students learning. It might be a product, it might be a project, it could be some other kind of demonstration. We're still working on that part. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, our primary instructional materials will be a core textbook, followed by local context for supplementals so that we have some flexibility, especially as things change, new things come out. We want to be able to be responsive to that. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Reddy.
Thank you, Holly. So we're currently in registration season. And so students are registering at Napa, Vintage, and American Canyon. This course is offered as an elective course. It is aligned to a semester of health, which we're also designing. And so we will have students who choose to enroll. We may have some students who it's their second or third option and will end up in ethnic studies. We think that that will be a true experience, knowing that all students will take it. And so we will have time to pilot this as an elective, receive feedback from our staff, from our students, from our families, provide them support over the next year. So we should have about 1 to 2 sections at each of these comprehensive high schools. Next slide, please. At Valley Oak High School, we currently already have ethnic studies. Having some of our staff from Valley Oak in the room and administrators to help with this process as I've already implemented and have some experience has been important. It's also important for us to acknowledge that students come to that school in 11th grade. And so continuing that course and honoring the nuances of in depth of understanding that a student may be able to engage at the 11th grade will continue to do so. New Tech High School being a smaller school, we are looking at dual enrollment or co-teaching through Napa Valley College for ethnic studies through the pilot and moving forward. This is an opportunity for us to maximize our resources and that partnership that New Tech has so well established with Napa Valley College. Next slide, please. So we'll wrap up this evening with next steps. We'll continue to develop and review and make a recommendation. So we're still working on the course of study. Tonight, you saw a skeleton of that and some of the bigger concepts. We look forward to providing more details. Our curriculum council will review and make recommendations similar to the updates that we're giving you. We're continuing to give these updates to our curriculum council. It is a weighty topic. And so we don't want our curriculum council to hear that right as it's coming in for review. And then we plan to later in this year bring forward to you a recommendation for a course of study and instructional materials. During that time, it does go over to board meetings, as I'm sure you're aware. And so there will be time for community viewing during that process. And with that, I will turn it back over to Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Eddy. As we conclude our presentation, we would like to share how we're going to engage. Oh, next slide, please. How we're going to engage with our community during this development process. As you heard earlier from Director Eddy and Academic Specialist Miller, we have incorporated various engagement points during the development of our local course. Given the importance of this course to the community, the course creation and adoption process varies from our typical curriculum and instructional material adoption process. With the creation of a local course, the California Department of Education recommends community engagement opportunities to ensure the course is culturally relevant to the community that it serves. In the next few weeks, we will share similar presentations to the one given tonight at the Superintendent's Parent Advisory and our district's English Learner Advisory Committee, also known as DLAC. Because student voice is essential to this process, we will also hold student sessions during the school day to provide our students an opportunity to share input in the course development. Lastly, we will provide an opportunity, a community information session on April 18th, as well as presentations at the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Meeting on April 20th. I'd like to finish with a note of gratitude. Director Reddy and Ms. Miller have worked intentionally to create a development process that is inclusive, engaging, and thoughtful, and I have confidence that the end results will reflect the beautiful diversity of our community. Thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we're open for questions.
Thank you. Before we take questions from the board, Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. First speaker is Norma Ortiz. Go ahead, please.
Hello, thank you. I think it's important to take special considerations to the intersection between teachers, student identities, and perspectives. In terms of race, ethnicity, what might the components look like in terms of the minorities? Is it also age, gender, race, class, and so forth, just to mention some? The understanding of resistance, the empowering youth, the communities that these two aspects work interchangeably in terms of the integrating and understanding component. Other considerations, social movements that have impacted or brought in innovative changes, for instance, women of color. I find highly important motivational learning for those students who might feel discouraged in some way, also to address the lack of attendance. And in terms of the discouragement, in the sense of the journey and identity of the individual. Hiring considerations, teachers who have an extensive background in and the cultural differences, and why not bilingualism, multilingualism, and female perspective, maybe also special education specialists and teachers. The possibility of exploring foreign policy as it pertains to this topic, an invite to world history teacher perspective, Napa Valley Unified School District, Napa Valley College, or other local community colleges like the Solano, Santa Rosa Junior College, to get the faculty perspective, the ethnic studies departments, humanities and programs, to get that robust engagement and collaboration. And why not students majoring in Mexican American studies, to also the collaboration with the dual immersion pipeline, teachers from Latin America that come and perhaps teach here. That used to happen in the past. I'm not sure if that's still the case. Responsiveness in the Latino, Latina X, Chicano, Chicana X, and the navigation of systems of privilege and oppression, the feminist perspective, the assessment of discrimination across multiple intersecting social statuses, dynamics of power, exploring those components, community activism in terms of how it has been serving minorities. And I like the part, I really like the part of the indigenous peoples, the supplemental curriculum or handouts, and the transformation of self, community, global as a citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michaels, do we have any further public comment on this item?
Yes, we do. Next speaker is Karina Cervente. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Great presentation. I'm a little concerned about some of the points. A lot more often than not, Latinos are clumped in one group, and they're not really viewed as a very diverse group. It's often assumed that all Latinos here in Napa County are from Mexican descent or from Mexico, and that's not the case. The migration patterns from the past years have been really taking an uptick of Central American and South American migrants. So I'm really interested in learning, hearing, and maybe being on some sort of support to the district to identify these students. My student is going into high school at ACHS, and tell the truth, he hasn't heard anything about, hasn't received any surveys. I haven't received any surveys about this new class, and it makes me wonder: are we really being inclusive, and are we really looking at all of the, for being a 6 month class, there's a lot of stuff. So, I commend you because it's a big undertaking, but I really worry that, that you really do a good service to our students. They're perhaps they're not in Napa, but in American Canyon, where it's even a bigger, we're more diverse here in American Canyon. So um, I want to make sure that that my student really gets a good ethnic studies class that covers most of the ethnicities in his community. So I would love to have a follow-up on this and have a little bit more of understanding of how is this going to be taking place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michaels, do we have any more public comment?
We do not. There is no further public comment.
Trustee Water?
Mrs. Cervantes makes a very good point. I was amused after the November election when the people who, try to figure out why people vote the way they do said, whoa, you know what? All these Spanish speaking people actually come from different parts of the world. Like Cuba is totally different from Mexico, which is different from Guatemala, which is different from different countries in South America, et cetera. So she's making a very good point. And I have confidence that in my class, when I taught, I had people from Mexico, lots of them, and also from Guatemala and also from El Salvador. So, but I'm sure that our staff is aware of that. So even if the reporters weren't. So, and I believe your family came from Cuba, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And my father grew up on the Standing Rock Reservation, and so he was already here. And so you can't leave them out either. You know what? I enjoyed the presentation because what I liked was when you say we're not going to have these cliches about saying we're all basically just alike, because in my experience, the people who say that don't want any ethnic studies programs. And we are the most diverse state in the country, and we should have a class that reflects that. And I'm just going to say that anti-Semitism is very real in this community. And I was driving to my grocery store. The person who put this up is not school age, but perhaps if he'd had an anti-Semitic sign on a main drag leading into one of our premier neighborhoods. And I believe that if he'd had an ethnic studies course, he might not have such antisocial ideas about people. So this is what we want. We want to produce citizens who respect each other's differences, embrace each other's differences, work together in spite of the differences, realize that our differences enrich us, give us different perspectives, and we want to make the world a better place. That's my idea of healthful activism. And I don't want to sound all starry-eyed and optimistic like our governor, who, I just love, but we just finished up talk about money. Director Manguala gave us, a sobering presentation. I mean, as I said to the superintendent, just think where we were 3 years ago. With COVID, we're frightened, stressed out, and here we are. We have come through it. And then when I first came on the board, financially, we were in a very distressing situation, and we're doing better now. But now I want to spend some money. I would love it if we looked at field trips and we could take our students to the Oakland Museum, which is the museum of California. And I think they would learn a lot more than going, and it's close and not too far away. And they would learn more than going on a trip to Disneyland, which is expensive and far away. What?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that that would be an enrichment of the curriculum, and it's just a great museum. It's a great museum, and they can go eat in Chinatown afterwards, right?
Thank you for bringing that up. It has come up around that local context and deepening around having a course that students across our ninth grade can have some of those signature experiences, whether it's a field trip or bringing in speakers who can enrich the class. Those have been discussions that we look forward to looking at more in detail.
Well, you can count on me to go.
Trustee Jenkins.
I really appreciate how purposeful and meaningful the framework was. I'm really looking forward to how you populate this with content that provides a space for all students to explore their racial and cultural experiences, and certainly differences, especially in light of shifts in national narratives and local narratives. I say this because I've received a great deal of communication from our community. So I just have one quick comment in response to those emails. As I receive these questions regarding the curriculum, I just want to reiterate that we have stated the why we're doing this. You did so in your presentation, but I would like to reiterate that our work is consistently grounded in DEI work, SEL practices, our district-wide focus on the ecosystem. Can you please say it, Dr. Musetti, with your...
Of Cariño.
Yeah, because I would not do well. Our intent is always to provide comprehensive, cohesive, and continuous dialogue around the creation and fostering of equitable and inclusive curriculum, classrooms, and schools. So this framework supports cross-cultural understanding, and it's going to help students value their own cultural identity while appreciating the differences around them. And I really appreciate the thoughtful approach that's been applied to the work thus far. So thank you. And thanks for explaining the funding piece when you said on the slide, guidance for districts funding. Is the anticipation that it will have funding needed is greater than a normal new introductory class?
So the state is this is a funded mandate. The state has actually, I know, that's why
I'm not familiar.
So they have provided funding that's allowed us to pay for the partnership, the professional learning, and the work that we're doing.
A one-time funded mandate?
It's one time, but it does help with the implementation aspect of it. And then beyond that, the maintenance of the course is similar to any other course that we would have.
And when you talked about the matriculation and the importance of the dialogue between 8th grade and 9th grade, will some of this be woven into the 8th grade social studies classes so that because there is structure already in those social classes, there might be an overlap of some course content, I don't know, but will that be a dialogue you have with the middle school social studies or no?
Those discussions have come up. They've come up all the way down to some of our elementary teachers as they've heard some of these presentations through our superintendent teacher advisory. And currently tonight we were finalizing a recommendation for core curriculum for history, social science. Our last adoption was in 2004. So we're letting our staff bring up to date our core curriculum. And then we'll see as we implement ethnic studies, the impact that we'll have. So I think there will be opportunities for us to explore this, and it will have an impact, but we're not sure yet.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Reiser.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation and for showing us how deliberate and conscientious and strategic you're being in the development of this course. You can just see there's a lot of integrity in the process and the stakeholder meetings, and in particular, elevating the student voice. I just am always happy to hear that highlighted. It's going to be very important, not only in this front loading and development of the course, but I'm sure that will be built into the pilot year with those students will be a really rich resource for us about how the content is landing and what discussions, and what additional resources, all of those things. I wanted to say how smart it is and how appreciative I am that you're doing the alignment with the middle school teachers. I'd sort of asked a question about what that looked like, and it really makes a lot of sense. And I appreciated the way you framed it as high school teachers might think, oh, there's no way a ninth grader can do that. And it's the eighth grade teachers that can actually say, oh, no, we're working with these kids and they can handle it. Or I would imagine the flip side of that of like, ooh, you're going to take that on and I'm not sure a ninth grader will be ready for that. So both sides of that coin are really important. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to say was I really appreciate the civic engagement emphasis and the way Director Reddy, you said, okay, you've given us this information. Now what do I do with it? So I just appreciated that, that there's going to be that tie-in to the social justice component, that it's not just this is the reality that we live in and there's nothing that we can do about it, but more this is the history of the way in which these groups and others have experienced being in our country, and that is not a static thing. And I guess my last thing I'll say is that I am encouraged to see the referencing of intersectionality, because there are other groups that are oppressed that are not racial and ethnic groups. And so I'm happy to see that it seems that there's going to be opportunities to highlight, the intersectionality of sexual identity and race or gender. We talk about, well, those people that have an intersection, well, every woman of every race, every woman is also part of an oppressed group, as we talked about International Women's Day yesterday. So I am hoping that those additional layers of experience will also be able to be worked in. I know we're in the planning stages, so it's all, to be filled in, but I have a lot of confidence in the, you've shown us all of these things are on your radar, and you're doing an enormous amount of self-education and learning and preparing for that. And I'm excited to see what you bring back to us. And this really is an iterative process. And so we'll be seeing what you bring, and then we'll be hearing how it goes in the first year. And I think it's just evidence of great thoughtful work. So thank you.
All right, Trustee Chu.
So I am a big proponent of ethnic studies. I may have jumped the gun and maybe hopefully brought a little bit of that into the classroom when I did Read Across America, where I read Kelly Yang's book on Yes, We Will, Asian Americans Who Shaped This Country. And I can tell you that the overwhelming response was that these kids really wanted to, took hold of that connection with some of the people that were highlighted in the picture book. And it was amazing that a picture book was about a diverse Asian culture. I mean, to Ms. Cervantes' point, Asians also are very diverse. And so it was very enlightening to see that a lot of these kids really wanted to see that connection with themselves to this book. And I know that Trustee Waters said, it's not about like, what was it? Well, this is how we are the same. But when you start showing the diversity of the cultures that are out there, I had students who were not Asian American said, oh my gosh, I didn't know this person, had done this or that. And some of them were very social justice, kind of figures. And so it was really affirming to me that this is what we need in our schools. I wish it was down in the elementary school age. Maybe one day we will have some supplemental material to do that. I think we're getting there, I hope. And I think Trustee Gracia had mentioned, well, maybe if we integrated it into some of the other curriculum, I would love to see that integrated all around, because I don't think one course can really touch on everything. I mean, this is going to be just a survey course, and a survey course is not going to be able to touch on all of the diverse populations just in American Canyon alone. I mean, we have 38 languages spoken down there. There's no way. But I do see that there are a lot of other courses that are offered at Napa Valley College. So my question then is, how do the Napa Valley College courses that are very much more specific, right? I just pulled one up on, there's one on Filipina American Studies, which is very relevant to American Canyon. There's also one on African American Studies, also very, relevant to my community. So how do those align with the work that we're doing here? Can it take place if the students wanted to take a class that's that course? Are they able to, or is it the second step after they take our ethnic studies class? What's the I guess what would be the relationship between our course and what is possible through dual enrollment?
I appreciate you describing it as a survey course. So a semester course is about 80 to 100 days, depending on the semester that the students enrolled. Will definitely hit the surface and allow them to engage. And those courses that you mentioned at Napa Valley Junior College are more in-depth courses, more topical in nature to specific identities. And so we are working with our college partners right now to talk about how do those allow students to go deeper. Some of our students are already taking those courses. Their ethnic studies department was recently redesigned. They have a new person in charge of their department who actually is a former teacher from American Canyon High School. So it's a great partnership for us to have. We are looking to have courses taught on the AC campus potentially that focus on Asian American studies next year, so we can get a taste of potentially as we finalize that CCAP agreement, what students enroll in the popularity of that. But any student can enroll in those courses, and hopefully with a foundation of a survey course, they'll be able to go more in depth and choose those as options. We'll continue to explore how we can bring some of those to our students on our campuses or with our teachers as we develop that agreement.
Thank you.
Trustee Gonzalez Mars.
Sure. I think I'm really excited. I'm actually sitting here feeling anxious at the same time, just because the topic of ethnic studies is just so seen on such a negative light. And I think this is the opportunity for the education system, not wait till college or a four-year university to get to that, but start embracing that early on. And I know we are already with our rainbow kits, right? And we're touching in some of those ways topics about diversity and inclusion. But then you enter the space of our high schoolers, where we're asking them to do a lot of critical thinking. And when you go into a history class or econ class or a science class, you carry with you who you are everywhere you go. And there's implications in each one of those classes in whatever way, where you as the person takes place in there, and then the environment around you and how you receive the information from the instruction side to your peers, it affects you. And so this doesn't solve everything, right? But when you have a place like ethnic studies, where you're looking at these units, and it starts with really reflecting on your history, what you bring, how unique and special you are, it starts to, I feel like, level the playing field for everybody. We start to see each other's as celebrating versus fearful of not knowing who are you, or what is it that you do or you bring to lunch, or why are you wearing that, or how is it that so those, and it's being curious, right? But just setting up a space, I think, with curriculum, right, with books and instruction. I mean, I just growing up, multilingual and having to move across countries, it makes you realize also more and more how much more are we responsible of creating that space for our kids to be global citizens? We're not asking them to be just here in Napa or in California in United States, but also think globally. And I think when you amplify that mind in that way, it just takes you beyond, right? And you can read that in books and all that, absolutely, but there's nothing like having a good conversation around that. And I think ethnic studies provides that. It provides the materials for you to read about it and discuss it and do that critical thinking. And it's such an amazing opportunity for our students to just grow, not just intellectually and academically, but also on the personal side, which I think is a lot of what we want from our students to leave our campus and graduate feeling like they know a little bit more of who they are and what they want to be and what kind of person are they going to be out there with the values that they carry out there with them. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that it's 2023 and just coming. That's the part that I'm most sad. It's like, oh my gosh, 1968. Yes. Can we have gone back to that time? Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be, you know, it's complex because we're human beings. And I've always said this over and over, we're very complex. And to the question that Karina asked, it's a question that it requires its space. It requires it to be heard, and just know that, you know, Karina, you are heard, because it's an ongoing topic. How can you encompass, again, the world into this right now, what it is, a 6-month curriculum? But I think we can certainly, you know, try our best. This is to get it going. It reminded me of a podcast that I was listening to, because there's the first National Museum of the American Latino that is now gonna happen by the Smithsonian's Institute, right? Because they have most recently they opened the National Museum of African American in History and Culture. Just beautiful place, with its hardship and pain of the history, but there's a recognition there. And I'm so excited that this museum is started. And one of the things that they're dealing with right now is what's Latinos in America? What, you know, what's the discussion? Are Cubans, Puerto Rican, apparently they kicked out the Brazilians right now, so they might advocate to come back. So it's so interesting. It's so interesting. And it's, you know, but that's part of it, right? And so may our kids not wait until they're 20 something or 30 or 40 to start asking those questions. May they find the support and the place to do that, like an education institution, like your public education, to offer this. So this is, you know, it's going to come with its challenges, because the world is complicated like that, and people like to challenge things, and rightly so. But here we have the evidence and the support and the legislation to say we're ready to move this forward. So I'm really excited. I am looking forward to the next update.
I did have a question. One of the things that you talked about was that there was going to be a community engagement piece on April 18th, I think it was. I was wondering two things. One, how are we advertising that so that people are aware that this is coming? And two, have we considered the possibility of a second community engagement, as there may be some trepidation out in the community, and having just one opportunity may not be quite enough to allow everyone to become familiar with what we're presenting?
So there are going to be several ways that we sort of communicate the opportunity for people in the community to come and engage with us and hear information. A very similar presentation to what you heard tonight. We'll send out through our typical parent channels and provide that opportunity to make sure that it's on our website. we've had some community interest from different community groups, and we'll also contact them and make sure that they're aware of the fact that this is being held, and we're going to do it in person and provide that opportunity for them to hear from us in person. So that was the first question. And the second question that you had to do with, there's another question in there.
So there were two. One was, how are we advertising the one day that we have, the 18th, and then are we going to have a second?
Well, typically when we are in the process of adopting a curriculum, the materials are available to the public to review. So we will have that community engagement or community information session. It's not community engagement, community information session that will allow people to hear from the community to hear directly from us. And we will also have the opportunity at the next board meeting or the board meeting that we present the actual presentation of the course as it's adopted. So community has an opportunity to engage during that time and provide input. And because we're required to also publicly display the materials, the community will have an opportunity to contact us and schedule a time to review that. So there will be multiple opportunities for the community to take a look at the curriculum that's been developed, the course that's been developed, and provide public comment.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Are you also bringing it down to American Canyon to have it be viewable in person?
We have not typically done that with any other curriculum materials. They've always been available or on display at the district office. Sometimes we've provided like a link to the information. Some parents can view it sometimes, or community members can view it, electronically, especially if it's a published curriculum. Often, that's not that we're not able to do that because publishers don't necessarily want their materials out there. So that's a challenge as well. So we have not considered whether or not we would do a community session in American Canyon. I know that we definitely will provide opportunities for the students of American Canyon and Napa to see the work that's being developed and provide input. And we know that that's our primary target audience are the students. And so we'll make sure to ensure that we have that.
Could we bring it to like open house at the middle schools, or that's an opportune time to catch parents?
I think we'll have to consider the timing of it. It's still in development. And so we are hoping to bring it to the school board closer to the end of May, and then it will go the second time for adoption. I don't know if you want to speak directly to that.
I think that also speaks to the graduation requirement shift. So part of the task of our graduation requirement committee is connected to this and really looking at communicating with our rising families who will be coming into ninth grade in 24-25 to make sure that they have the opportunity to learn about the new requirements and learn about the courses that are involved in that. So there's the immediate pilot group. And then I think there's intentionality around that particular group of about 20 stakeholders within our system to learn about it. And additionally, I think internally it's really important. So we've had communication internally to all of our staff throughout all divisions. Every other week, our staff receives updates, as well as our administrative team weekly through those updates. So those are some of just the ongoing pieces that I think it's important for our internal staff to understand too, as their conduits in our community of messaging.
Would encourage staff to at least consider the possibility that a City of Napa engagement one and a City of American Canyon engagement night may be appropriate, so that we have the opportunity for input.
I would agree with that.
For all participants.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that into consideration as we plan.
And then I noticed on the slide, I forget the number now, but that there are potentially benefits outside of just the benefit of taking the class, that we also might see increased attendance, increase on test scores, and increased GPA. I would like to see, as we pilot this and then as the course becomes standardized for all students, if we are seeing any meaningful movement in those areas as we move forward. So hopefully that will be something we can review in the future.
Thank you. That is something we definitely will take a look at.
Dr. Massetti?
Yeah, thank you, President Gracia. I just I want to make a few comments. This is such a important topic in California Public Schools. I want to thank all of the board members for just your rich reactions to this as the governing body that's going to be taking action around implementation of this and the curriculum. We've heard so much from you just as trustees and representatives from various segments of our community thinking about anti-Semitism, intersectionality, the unique diversity, rich diversity of American Canyon across a variety of ethnic groups, the rich question brought forth by Ms. Karina Cervente and elaborated on by Trustee Gonzalez Mares around the diversity of the Latinx population. Thank you for illuminating. I'm Cuban and married to an Afro-Latino male with biracial children who identify also as Latinx. So yeah, our histories are complex in that way. And I'm glad that we're creating an opportunity in public schools for everyone's rich identity to be explored. The ethnic studies graduation requirement brings an exciting opportunity to California public schools and its students. And I'm very grateful that youth will have the opportunity to explore issues of diversity, power, privilege, and identity. It's also phenomenal to see the histories and experiences of marginalized peoples elevated now formally and systematically. Before, often that was often contingent upon maybe a staff member that might be on staff at a potential school. So this course will make it formal and systematic. And my hope is that this elevation will lead to more social justice and disruption of the status quo that we've seen around oppression for future generations. So yeah, I'm glad that work started in 1968, like you said, at the University of California.
San Francisco State.
Berkeley, San Francisco State. Didn't I see UC Berkeley up there? Oh, they were second. Okay, we're usually number one, but I guess we were second about this one. So, and then in addition to that, I just want to thank Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings, Director Monica Reddy, Ms. Miller. This is a ton of work. And I've been in different venues around the state. I know you all were at the CSBA conference, and I can say that we are very, very organized around the preparation and planning and the execution of this. And this is because of the efforts of the three people before us. I appreciate two specific elements of your approach to this work. First, I want to appreciate how you've combined two key pieces, which is the research base paired with the local context. And you've created 4 units of study. I know we're still fleshing that out. I really enjoyed coming in briefly to the session and seeing the teachers do the work that Ms. Miller alluded to. But you really have grounded the work in 4 high quality driving questions. They are simple, but those driving questions for the 4 units of study are going to elicit a lot of deep learning in our classrooms. Second, I appreciate that you have facilitated collaboration, that you've made facilitated collaboration central to the process. I know right now it was commented that we haven't surveyed parents and gone out. We have to remember that this is a curriculum development process, and there has to be some professional expertise that this work is first grounded in, right? And so we have educational experts that are first working on it. And then of course, there's this element around community engagement. I know you'll do facilitated collaboration with them as you move through the process. So when we lead such an important change, this is a historical change. It's a structural change. And when we lead it with the degree of care that you all have demonstrated over the course of the last few months, I know provides me as a superintendent, and I think I can speak for the board, the reassurance that we are taking the work very seriously and that we're organized, like I said, and that we're doing this all while being open and transparent. And, we're making sure that the community can be represented and empowered, right? Through how we do the work and then what the work is about, because this work is about empowerment. So thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Moving on to K, action items. K1, business services. K1A, second interim 2022-23.
Move to approve? I'll second.
Okay, I was like, wait, who was that? First by trustee Riser, second by trustee Jankowicz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. K1B, purchase of COGAT licenses for 2023-24.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Jankowicz. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do have public comment. The first speaker is Norma Ortiz. Go ahead, please, Norma.
Thank you. In terms of the licenses, I would like to know more about that in terms of the student placement and how the decisions around that and how will it be implemented? Is it encompassing K through 12 in terms of the ALPS? Maybe perhaps it might be a good idea to kind of elaborate more in this aspect and maybe in a future newsletter, because we've been hearing very minimal, at least I've been trying to be on top of reading all the newsletters, but I've heard probably not much about ALPS, how the programs, well, before COVID, my daughter was in the program, and since then I never heard back. I reached out a couple times, never heard back in terms of how these how this program is going to continue providing those or address and support those talents and also challenge our students learning. So I would like to know more about that. And just to touch up on the ethnic studies aspect, the newsletter would be a great source.
Okay.
Also the Napa Register. Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz?
Yeah, I
Thank
know.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Michaels, do we have any further public comment?
There's no further public comment on this item.
Thank you.
I have a comment or an ask. So thank you, Ms. Ortiz, for highlighting what parents might not understand what ALPS is going to become in the future. So I was wondering if it's possible in a future agenda item that we can get an update on what the program is going to look like. We're identifying with COGAT, which is great, but what do we do with the students after? I know that each school has different programs, so maybe an overview of what it is that, how are we supporting these students as a future item?
Yeah, yes, our board presentation calendar is very full. What did we say yesterday at our meeting? Are we down to 5?
5 meetings, yeah.
5 meetings. But what we can do is potentially bring it first to board curriculum and student support, which are public meetings. So for anyone who's interested in that, you can look at the agendas for that and the committee times for that. And then maybe we could bring that as an item early in the fall next year.
That sounds good. Thank you.
And Dr. Massetti, we actually have it slated for a board curriculum and student support advisory committee for
Perfect.
April. So
Great.
it's slated to be done then. So we've had several questions regarding it. So it'll be presented on that day.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I think we can. Can we vote on this? Yeah, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. K2, Human Resources. K2A, Resolution 23-25, Release of Temporary Certificated Employees.
Second.
First by trustee Jankowicz, second by trustee Chu. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Right. Ms. Morales, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, trustee Gracia,
Aye.
trustee Water,
Aye.
trustee Ricer,
Aye.
trustee Shu,
Aye.
trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
trustee Hart,
Aye.
trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item K2B, Resolution 23-26, non-reelection of probationary certificated employees.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Jankowicz. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Thank you. Ms. Morales, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, trustee Gracia,
Aye.
trustee Water,
Aye.
trustee Ricer,
Aye.
trustee Shu,
Aye.
trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
trustee Hart,
Aye.
trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. K3, Instructional Services. K3A, Contract with Universal Health Services of Provo Canyon School, Inc., doing business as Provo Canyon School.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Jankowicz. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item K3B, Supplementary Instruction Material Adoption for Middle School.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Hart. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. K3C, New High School Course of Study for Mathematics.
I'll move to approve, but I would like some discussion on this.
Okay,
Second.
first by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Mr. Michaels, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. First speaker is Karina Cervente. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm a little concerned about getting rid of honors calculus and putting in its place the AP calculus. I'm wondering, has there been any thought or any surveys, for lack of a better word, to see what the parents want? Because when it comes to AP classes, the tests to get that credit, they're extremely expensive. I'm for one come from a family that is in that middle class, that working poor. We don't get any benefits, but yet we have to pay full price for everything. So I wouldn't be able to get the benefits of free and reduced lunch and not pay for this test for my incoming high schooler. So honors class gives my high schooler the advantage of getting those extra GPA credits, but doesn't break the bank. So has it been given any thoughts about it? Because I just don't understand why we don't have more honors classes. And some time ago, I overheard a conversation that a lot of the students that take these AP exams don't even pass the exam, so they don't get the credit. So I'm like very confused. It doesn't take that much, you know, being a very educated person to see what's a better deal for us customers, parents and students. So yeah, I would like you to think a little bit more about this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michaels, do we have further public comment on this item?
Yes, we do. Next speaker is Norma Ortiz. Go ahead, please.
Yes, just I was taking a look at the document and just a little bit curious on the question about what is the plan for sustainability of this course over time. I'm curious about that and how it might continue, well, not continue, but how might it, if, well, once it's implemented, how will it effectively address the AG requirements and the Common Core standards? I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michaels, is there more public comment on this item?
We have no further public comment on this item.
Trustee Chu?
So I guess my questions are somewhat related to what Mr. Venti had mentioned, is that there's when students take AP classes, they are expected to take the AP test at the end. So we have, I mean, some students may or may not take it at the end, but the expectation is they would. Is that going to discourage some students who are ready for that rigor of an AP class or an honors class, whatever you want to call it, from taking the class at all? And how does that, maybe you could explain what is the expectation for a student to take this class, given that the honors class never had that expectation?
Thank you. So just to go back a step so that everyone has clarity around, an honors course is a locally developed course. And so although it provides a bump in a GPA and that level of rigor, it's not as nationally recognized as the College Board. And the College Board has developed particular syllabi that can be adopted as model courses for advanced placement that are nationally recognized, known by colleges. So the replacement of the advanced placement with the honors positions our students on more of a national scale. For although universities recognize the grade bump, they may not have as much clarity around really what is a locally designed honors course. So that's that piece of it. The second piece is that students aren't required to take the advanced placement exam. They're encouraged, they're prepared for it, but they don't have to take it. If they can't afford it, we will cover that cost. Even if they're not free reduced price lunch, each of the high schools has a process for students who cannot afford assessments and to be able to access that. And so that's in place and we have funding for that. We can, as we implement this course, like any course, look at and see if there are barriers to it. But it does position our students. We think that the benefits of positioning our students to take the assessment at the end and potentially earn college credit is not afforded by an honors course, but that says it's the same level of rigor. So we feel like it positions our students better while also giving them the option. Our students oftentimes when they get to senior year, especially those that have taken so many advanced placement courses, choose not to take some assessments because they know where they're going, especially in the spring. They know where they're going. They know what credits will apply and what won't. And so we'll continue to honor students who do not want to take that assessment at the end. But I think it's important to note that part of the advantage of these courses goes beyond the GPA and the actual assessment. It's really about students being able to engage in a rigorous course in high school and the benefits that we see when students go to college, having been immersed in that level of rigor early on. College Board has shown that that just sitting in the course, taking the course with their peers in a supportive environment in high school enables them to be more successful in college.
Isn't it true, though, that if they don't take the course, they don't get the GPA bump? The test, that's what I mean. the test.
No, so it's advanced course. So it has a higher, when it calculates in the GPA, it's higher, even whether they take the assessment or not.
I have mixed feelings about the AP courses, although I absolutely reveled in teaching AP literature. That was, a wonderful experience for me, and I hope my students enjoyed it. I had fun. But one of the advantages of the AP course, you may be paying for a test, but it can pay off if your child passes in not having to take the course in college. And
articulated that way.
Yes.
There are some colleges that
there
do,
and there are some colleges that don't accept it.
and depending on major.
And depending on majors, right? But my daughter was able to finish up in the first quarter of her senior year and go off and do a paid internship, and it worked out very well financially. But and I know that the UC prefers the AP courses because they felt, when we made the change from Honors American Lit to AP Lit, they felt that a lot of the so-called honors classes were really were homemade, and they weren't particularly rigorous. The one at Napa High was extremely rigorous, and I might add that it was actually harder than a lot of advanced placement literature courses. The old days, but that this is what UC wants, and the Napa Valley Unified, our students take more courses than the state requires because we want people to fulfill the A through G requirements of the UC and the CSU. I want to repeat that so our critics can hear it. Our high school students' graduation requirements are significantly higher than the state high school graduation requirements.
I have one more question, but I think we may need to extend the time.
2 minutes, but yes, I'll take a motion to extend.
I'll
the meeting.
I'll motion to extend for 30 minutes. We won't take 30 minutes.
Second.
All right, first by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser, all in favor?
Aye.
So my second question is, so when I was in high school way long ago, we only had regular pre-calculus. There was no honors, there was no regular pre-calculus. People took calculus because by design, pre-calculus is an advanced course. It leads to you being prepared to take calculus. And in my case, it was calculus BC. So why are we offering honors or AP, whatever it is that you want to be accelerated versus a regular pre-calculus class? What is the what makes it so different? Why not just offer one? And because by design, pre-calculus is advanced. Usually if you don't want to continue on in math, you just stop at integrated math 3.
So mathematics is one of the areas where we have what's called acceleration. And so oftentimes in other subject matters, you have advanced or honors, and mathematics is actually a place where we use acceleration. So when we redesign our math pathways, there's 3 pathways. An accelerated pathway, a student starts on in 8th grade, and that starts with math 1. It's not honors. We don't have honors courses in middle school, but they are accelerated because they're taking a year and a half worth of standards in 1 year. That continues them on that pathway. So they have honors courses along that pathway, honors math 2, honors math 3, in preparation for advanced placement pre-calculus, which is a new course, not just to us, but also to the College Board, that prepares them for AP calculus or a dual enrolled calculus course. Students who would enroll in a pre-calculus course would be on that traditional pathway. So a student who takes math 1 as a 9th grader, math 2 as a 10th grader, math 3 as an 11th grader, and then engages in pre-calculus, positioning them for when they do go off to that post-secondary education, whatever they may choose, being prepared to take calculus probably in their post-secondary journey. We do have the option for students to accelerate later. That was a pathway that we added last year, the late acceleration pathway. And that junior year, when they accelerate late, they take a course that we call Accelerated Math 3 or Honors Math 3. It incorporates some of the standards of pre-calculus so that they're prepared to go into calculus later. They've shown later on that they have the readiness, that they have the skills and the knowledge to be able to accelerate late. And so they would not take that pre-calculus course or that AP calculus course because those standards, much like you see that compression in eighth grade standards and Math 1 standards, in the junior year of Honors Math 3, you see that compression of trigonometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus standards into 1, and then they go into calculus. So it's more of our college prep pre-calculus course will remain, and it'll remain for our students on that traditional pathway who have that post-secondary journey into calculus.
So will pre-calculus then better prepare the students for the rigors of calculus BC, AP calculus BC, or it's still going into, well, I guess the alternative is AB.
So students who take AP calculus are, because of the alignment of the College Board, are probably better positioned. It's a new course that hasn't been implemented yet for College Board, so we'll see. They would go from AP calculus, AP pre-calculus to typically AP calculus AB, and then BC follows. So we offer AB. Some of our students who take AP pre-calculus will go into Napa Valley College dual enrolled course of Math 120, Math 121. So it is that advanced pathway that accelerates them there.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will move to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. On to item L, informational, L1, student services, L1A, curriculum and student support committee. There was a meeting, the notes are attached. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Michaels, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
All right, item L1B, facilities and technology. There was no meeting, so we'll move on to item L1C, finance committee. Moving on to L1D, the policy committee did not meet. Moving then on to item M, additional suggestions and comments from board members and superintendent. Seeing none, move on to item N, future agenda items. I will just reiterate my desire to see the data on whether or not the students are performing better in those categories that I asked about during the DEI presentation. And then on to item O, adjournment. I move to adjourn.
Second.
First made by myself, second by trustee Chu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Another great.